wait time is approximately forever.
Cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to live election night coverage. Once again, it's official. Midterms are here. Primaries start tonight. The state of Texas kicks us off. Well, actually, technically, there's some lesser high-profile primaries currently going on in Arkansas and North Carolina. But the big event, the reason why everybody is here, is not to watch Roy Cooper walk off with like 80-some% of the vote in North Carolina. It's because they want to see what's going on in Texas. This is the showdown, possibly the most hotly contested primary of the entire year until at least the summer, but possibly for the whole year. We'll see who goes to runoffs. Democrats having a race war going on right now. The whole thing is in limbo, and we're here. We're going to break down the results as they come in. You guys can contribute to the conversation via Super Chat. You guys know the drill. We're starting 7 minutes until kickoff here as these polls are about to close, although it is true that Texas, West Texas closes about an hour later. In Dallas County, because of the Crockett campaign, she was able to extend the voting hours by 2 hours because of some confusion. I actually dealt with that today myself while going to cast my ballot. But regardless, we got it done. Ken Paxton, could he just walk off in round one over John Cornyn? That would be huge. What's going to happen to Tony Gonzalez? Could he lose his primary to gun YouTuber Brandon Herrera. Could that happen? Very likely compared to about a few months ago, as the scandal really has started to ramp up and it's really started to hurt Gonzalez, even though he has the Trump endorsement. But on top of that, Dan Crenshaw, he's at risk. Could he lose his primary? There's a lot of stuff going on here tonight. I'm excited. Everybody's excited. We're going to break it down. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. So we'll see. We'll have to get some super chats in the mix, and we might as well read a couple while we wait for the polls to close. Ozark Christian, Missouri 7 says Ken Paxton needs to at least make the runoff. We cannot let witch hunts kill the political career. He's going to make the runoff. If anything, he might walk off with the whole thing. I'd be not all that surprised. And Democrats, now it's like they're acting like Tallarico's going to run away with this. The betting odds have shifted towards him dramatically. It's not really showing up in the polling, and I think they are over analyzing the early vote tea leaves. He could still walk away with it. I'm not saying he couldn't, but again, I'm not sure that I'm seeing enough to say that it's a slam dunk. They're like, oh, well, there's more votes or there's like the same amount of votes in Austin as there are on election day in Dallas. And it's like Dallas has had really good early vote turnout. I think it's a little bit premature, in my opinion, to say that it's like a 90-10, maybe 70-30. But I think that 10-cent value on Kalshi was a good thing, a good bet to make. Also, the chance of a runoff, it's like it was at like 5% earlier today. I just had to put $100 down because you know that there's a chance that this 49. It's a slim chance for sure. But if they both finish at like 49, 45, it's like, come on, like that's a feasible outcome. It doesn't mean that it's going to happen, but I just think that it's just ridiculously undervalued in some of the betting markets for the people that are interested in knowing what they have to say. But we will see. It is still, it's still a little bit early. We don't have any results. The polls close in 4 minutes, but it's like you look at the state of the betting markets and they're filled with very online liberal types and very online conservative types as well, to be fair. The betting sphere is not like right versus left, but the IRL vibe, at least in DFW that I see, I don't see a lot for Tallarico compared to all the money he's spending. So he better have a masterclass performance among white voters in like Austin, San Antonio. He better have a masterclass performance among Hispanics if he wants to go win this thing. And Jasmine Crockett, she's got to win like 90% of the black vote. If she does that, I can't really see her losing. If she gets like 80, she still has a shot. If she gets like 70, then I think she's probably cooked. So we'll monitor the situation. I'm not afraid of either candidate. I'll beat either one. I think Tallarico might even arguably be more fun to run against. He's more hateable, believe it or not. I think he's more hateable than Jasmine Crockett. Jasmine Crockett's a clown. We understand that. Tallarico is a snake. He is not really pretending to be much of a moderate for like Texas, but they're going to prop him up. He's probably going to lose by like 4 to Ken Paxton, and we'll see. Now on the Republican side, you have this three-way primary between Cornyn, Paxton, and Hunt. Hunt probably takes votes away from both. A vote for Hunt is not necessarily a vote for Cornyn because you do have a runoff. So do keep that in mind. Also, at the gubernatorial level, we'll see. Greg Abbott, last time around, he faced some challenges. He still got roughly 2/3 of the vote there, but at the same time, that's not that good for a sitting governor with a Trump endorsement. Now he probably gets closer to 90 because he has drastically improved over the past 4 years. He literally is going to be the Texas FDR. You're talking about 4 terms. You're talking about, landslide victories in the general election. You're talking about in a wheelchair. We can't forget about that if we're going to make the FDR comparison. Whether people say it's in poor taste or not, we're still going to make it. Wild and Crazy Bear says, are you a fan of Salty Cracker? I'm aware of him. I don't really consume the content. BB for 2 says, Tallarico is overrated. Still think Crockett wins. We'll see. Ju Angus 913 says, do you think Paxton can clear 50? We're about to find out because Texas actually reports their votes quickly. Now, North Carolina, we don't have any results in yet. out of North Carolina, even though the polls have already closed. And usually they report quickly, so that's interesting. Arkansas, nothing as well. So we are, well, actually, do the polls? Yeah, polls close in 30 minutes in Arkansas. I think that they are Central Time, and they close 30 minutes after Texas. So Pax Tatarika for 10 says, I voted Brandon Herrera. That's good to hear. And John Waffle H2P 70 says, saw the House Republicans have endorsed Cornyn. They don't get it. Yeah, I mean, they have like the incumbency protection thing going on. I think that they should just probably not say anything, to be honest, if we're going to be completely honest here. I don't think that it really does anybody any favors, if we're going to be honest. So, all right. Currently, we have 25 seconds until the polls close. John Waffle, H2P, sent a super chat. Oh, we already read that one. So we're about to be underway here in 15 seconds in the state of Texas. It's here, the midterm cycle, and it starts now. Republicans with a shot to knock off 3 rhinos tonight, 1 in the Senate, at least force him to a runoff, or all 3 to a runoff. Dan Crenshaw in the 2nd district, as well as Tony Gonzalez down there in the 23rd, who is a very horrific scandal, if we're going to be completely honest here. So we're officially underway. It is 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. Polls have closed in Texas. We await for the results from both primaries. Both are competitive. Democrats probably will cast more ballots because theirs was more high profile. And everybody's acting like this is like doom and gloom for the Republicans in the general election. I'm not quite seeing it. I'm not quite seeing that. 2008, the Democrats had significantly higher turnout when both primaries were still going on. And we saw Texas go red by 14 points that year. So it's not entirely indicative. You have some Republicans crossing over. You have some Democrats that have crossed over and voted in the Republican primary like 2024 that are voting Democrat this time because they have a primary that is competitive. And that means that it's going to be a lot tougher for John Cornyn, and that we know Donald Trump staying out of this race. We'll see how that really has an impact. I'm sure his endorsement probably would have swayed about 15 to 20% of the vote for sure. Regardless, he might endorse in the runoff. We will see. Hopefully for Paxton, if it is Paxton v. Cornyn, which it probably will be if it's a runoff, because it's clear that Wesley Hunt, he had a little bit of a glimmer of hope, and then it kind of just faded away. He didn't really run the greatest campaign in the world, it seems. So, you live and learn. He should have stayed in the House, but at least it forces Cornyn to hold off on his money, and then maybe Paxton just, comes up from behind and gets the guy. So here you have 857 for 2 saying Trump sold out for Israel. How can you you people literally just don't get it. In fact, I think you people are incapable of getting it at this point. Like, we've been over this. How many reasons could you list for the Iran invasion? Trump has been saying this since 2011, by the way, if not the 1980s, about how it's possible, leave it on the table. And this is the same guy who was against the Iraq war. So it's not like he has poor judgment. He has restraint. He didn't start a war in 5 years of his presidency, first term and second term. He supports strength on the world stage. There's so many moving parts these people don't seem to understand, but we have results, and these are more important. Jasmine Crockett, but this is a very, it seems like, rural county. Probably the lion's share of the Democrats here are black. And I like how they mention what's in the county on the New York Times. That is a new feature. I like it. Say what you want about the New York Times. Their election stuff is pretty top notch. That's pretty cool. So Jasmine Crockett off to a lead. We'll see how this impacts the markets. Probably not by much at all, if we're going to be completely honest, because it's just very early, and it's one county that you see, and the counties are going to pop up and pop up like dominoes here. But let's see. We don't have any results in the Republican primary. BB for two says Dems outvoted Republicans in '02 as well. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of precedence for this, even in the pre-Trump era, when Bush was winning the state by 20, when McCain was winning the state. I guess McCain did only win it by like 11, but that was a really rough year for Republicans. And as the state has kind of changed demographically, it's hurt Republicans, although maybe Trump was able to get some of that back with the surge among Hispanic voters for Trump. There's question marks about how that translates down ballot. A lot of people are viewing it wrong, to be honest, because they will compare Trump's margin to the midterm margins. You should be comparing the 2022 midterm margins to the 2026 midterm margins. And we have liftoff, and John Cornyn is in the lead, although Dallas County is where it's showcasing support for him so far. He's up in Dallas County. He's up in Denton. He's almost at 50%. Now, I don't know if that's going to hold statewide, but and already you see some slippage here as more votes have been reported in, I think, was it Denton County? But the suburban area of DFW, not really the stronghold for Ken Paxton so far. And that's not really the best sign for Paxton in terms of his ability to walk off in round one with a victory. And it could possibly show that Cornyn's spending may have indeed worked. But it's very early. That would be unfortunate if that margin would hold, or if he's able to get to, I don't think he's going to get to 50, because this is going to be your strongest area for John Cornyn. But we'll see. Now on the Democrat side, we have more votes. Tarrant County, Crockett by 13. In Tarrant County, Denton is a little bit whiter. It's a lot younger. Tallarico's only up by 11. But look at this. Kaufman County, Crockett, 71%. Ellis County, 71%. Yeah, I think that there's a shot for Crockett if this holds. Now, I don't want to jump the gun here, but you don't even have Dallas County in. She's up by 9. Of course, Tallarico is going to do better in the rural areas. He'll do better in Austin, better in San Antonio for sure, because he kind of represented that area. He does better among Hispanics than he does among black voters. But that is brutal, because the betting markets were showing Tallarico possibly winning Tarrant County, and I'm not seeing it. And this is the early vote, and Tallarico is stronger, they say, in the early vote. If that is true, he might need some help, because that is not entirely what the Democrats have wanted to see if they wanted Tallarico. But again, the betting markets have not moved much because of this. But 8% of the vote is in, and it seems like they're counting non-election ballots as it stands, but they haven't fully allocated where they're going in. And now you have a rural county. It's showing a big support for Ken Paxton. That's where he'll run it up. We'll see how Paxton ends up doing when it comes down to South Texas. How's he holding up among Hispanic voters? We'll see. Although many of them, even if they vote red, they still have voted in the Democrat primary. It's going to take time. This is how it works. So realignment, as you've seen, white Southerners in Arkansas were still voting Democrat for some offices well into like the Obama years even. I think it was 2014 was the last time you had a blue senator in Arkansas. You had one in Louisiana as well. But this is interesting. North Carolina, there's nothing. Arkansas hasn't even closed yet. But we have more super chats here. Justin American for $9.99 says, from behind the scenes, Israel did push us towards the strikes early. Not all of our assets were on place in the 28th, but Trump did not sell out. Iran does not need to go, but it's suspicious. Or Iran does need to go, but it's suspicious. Well, it's a more reasoned take than the other gentleman's. I guess what I would say to that is that you have something that benefits them. They're going to be in support of it. It makes sense. As it stands for the strikes and how this could lead to like something greater in terms of like an all-out war, Trump's made it clear he doesn't want that. He's also made it clear that he's not going to try to placate the anti-war crowd when he's negotiating, nor should he. And it's not like Trump hasn't talked Netanyahu out of action in the past because he didn't think it was the right time to strike, and honestly, vice versa. To be fair, there's articles I could show you of the vice versa. But that's just typically how it goes. Trump's his own man. He's doing this because he thinks it would benefit the United States to have somebody in there that is actually going to allow the United States to have more access to the oil in the region, etc. We won't have to be involved as much in the region because of all the terror that Iran sponsors under the previous regime. And they're also a major strategic ally of Russia and China, both of which Trump is trying to get to the negotiation table. Therefore, it's kind of a proxy the same way it was for Maduro in that regard. So it's not about just for Israel. Israel could literally not exist, and this would still be something Trump probably would want to do if I had to guess. And you could say regime changes failed in Iraq. It did. It failed in Afghanistan. I also think that the difference is that the Persian people have shown opposition to this regime that was basically installed upon them. The Persian people don't really tend to want to live under that like Taliban-style rule as we see in places like Afghanistan. This is not about promoting democracy. In fact, it's probably going to be a monarchy, but the Persian Empire will be restored ideally, but hopefully not without boots on the ground. And I understand that you can make an argument. This might not go very well at the end of the day, but I think that Trump has earned some deference in terms of his judgment to approach foreign policy and foreign affairs. And the people that are drowning in their wrong about everything awards, I don't really have a lot of respect for those people and don't really think I should lend them a lot of credence. So that's my take on that. Now, back to the election, because this is what tonight's really about. We are still waiting. It does seem as if Jasmine Crockett so far has put up strong numbers, although it is early, and you don't have the strongholds in for either side. But if what you're seeing is true in Fort Worth, which a lot of people said could be a bellwether, even if it leans Crockett, she's up by 13. That might be a number that increases and goes up. That's not entirely, ideal. And it's what I've said about urban Hispanics and rural Hispanics are going to be two different ball games when it comes to their support. Now, Rockwall County, it's much whiter, much higher income. Not a lot of votes there, obviously. Tallarico is up by just 3 points there. I mean, we know Crockett has been going heavy in the Dallas area. She'll do okay among whites in DFW, but, Denton should be a stronghold for Tallarico in particular, and he's only up by 11 points. And these people were saying that Tallarico is going to win statewide by like 15. I never saw that. Now, it's early. That could age poorly. But from what I'm seeing now, unless there's a massive late surge in the election day vote for Tallarico, which is what runs contrary to what every one of these people are saying, then I don't see it. But again, Dallas County's reported more votes, it seems. So the Republicans are now reporting the votes in Dallas. Paxton won Rockwall. Kaufman goes to Paxton. So again, another urban-rural divide, but Russ County, it's kind of like a small city suburb, small metro suburb. It's early, but Cornyn's in the lead there. So again, I tell people, these primaries matter. They really do. And if we fail here, that's unfortunate. Now, other races that are high profile in the state, we could look at the governorship as well. And it seems like Abbott, he's not at 90%, but everyone was upset TPUSA didn't endorse this Pete Chambers guy. But again, he didn't have a shot to win. And Abbott has improved. He's been a better governor than he was the previous term. So the fact that he's being rewarded for that, I didn't see it as a negative thing, to be honest. Now, it seems like Gina Hinojosa is going to very likely be the nominee for the Democrats. So we'll see what happens in the general, but I think Abbott should win by around 10, give or take. But it's not the most high-profile race, so we have nothing out of the Crenshaw primary. Again, it's early, but Texas actually reports their votes relatively quickly. Not too fast like Florida. We'd be done already. We'd be ready to wrap the stream up. But let's see. Hector Marbufa says it's a shame Trump didn't get to completely control the GOP apparatus, you shouldn't have to deal with rhinos like Cornyn. Dems don't have problems. Well, Trump probably doesn't hate Cornyn that much because Cornyn at least falls in line when Trump is in the White House. However, Trump won't be in the White House forever. He'll be in there for a couple more years. Cornyn supports gun control. Cornyn is vaguely pro-amnesty. He's somebody we need to get out. So that's my rationale here. He's not as bad as Tom Tillis, but he's still a dinosaur who needs to go. He's an old guard Republican who's willing to play ball because he knows his career's on the line. And it is on the line. So far, he's at 46% with the entire DFW in. He's probably going to a runoff. And my guess is that Trump endorses Paxton if Crockett's the nominee, and he might endorse Cornyn and get cold feet if Tallarico's the nominee, even though I'm not afraid of Tallarico. I think Cornyn has electability problems as well for the people that always want to talk about electability. How did that work out in Virginia with the establishment candidates? Like, I'm not saying that you need to run like a MAGA caricature. You don't need to do that. At the same time, you have to have candidates that can get base appeal to show up to win. Like, it's a two-way street. It really is. So I'm just impatient. We need more votes on the Democrat side. I'm actually more curious to see the result of their primary. But so far, I mean, Crockett is not doing that poorly. She's only at 13% in the betting odds. She hasn't moved much, which is kind of surprising because so far I can't say that this is bad. But again, you don't have Austin in. To be fair, you don't have Dallas in either. That's going to be a hydrogen bomb of votes for Crockett. Psycho benches is Brandon Herrera for the 23rd. Let's go. All New Year says our year's going pretty good if you catch my drift. I do catch your drift on that one. Ozark Christian MO7 says as long as Trump doesn't enact a draft, I'm voting red, but if there's prolonged regime change, they'll lose in 26 and 28. Well, if there's a war that goes on 2 years, is very unpopular, you're right. 100% for 2028. 2026, I think Republicans, again, they have a lot working against them just by nature of the state of affairs. It doesn't matter how good the economy is. If Trump's in the White House, we've seen what happens. The economy was great in 2018. You still got decked. I don't think they're going to get decked as hard as they did in 2018, no matter how long this conflict goes on for. But yeah, independents don't like war if it's long and, drawn out. But the Iraq war is not Iran. In fact, the Iraq war is the reason why Iran became emboldened in the first place. Like, this is something that a lot of people have acknowledged, including many people in Israel that were against the initial Iraq war, for all the people that love to talk about Israel and nothing else 24/7 because it's trendy or whatever. But, oh well, it seems like we don't have any new results. We're waiting. So more super chats. Miku4X bot says Crockett Surge, Slay Queen. Exactly. I tell Democrats this, and I say it ironically. If you vote for Tallarico, you just don't want a strong black queen to be your nominee for Senate. You want some cosmopolitan, southern, white guy who's probably... Okay, let's see here. No new result. Okay, we have more results. Another rural county that came in heavily for Crockett, although that is in the Killeen area. There's a lot of, it says white voters make up the largest group among Democrats. That surprises me then. Crockett's winning rural whites. Maybe it's crossover support for Crockett. Maybe, again, another county, white voters make up the largest. Crockett putting on a masterclass among rural white. She's the queen of the white people. It's incredible. But the online white Democrats are just like, they're coping so hard. They cope hard whenever you push their buttons on that. It's like, you made the rules. You made your own woke rules and you can't even abide by them. So Republicans crossing over into your primary are enforcing your gay race communism and supporting the Queen Jasmine Crockett, as we put it. Because tonight we want her to win. Although, to be fair, it's not the end of the world if she doesn't. But it's like kind of like an ironic thing. I obviously do not like Jasmine Crockett in the slightest. But here's a white pill. Fort Bend County's going in for Ken Paxton as it speaks right now. So that is kind of surprising. So it seems like Cornyn did very well in DFW, but the Houston area, I would have said, given the results in DFW, Cornyn would have done very well in Fort Bend, but we're not quite seeing that. So that's interesting. This one, I think, does go to a runoff, but let's check the Democrat primary once again. Fort Bend is currently, oh my goodness, that is an insane margin. Fort Bend County is a large county. It's a light blue county. Trump almost flipped it back. It does say black voters make up the largest group among Democrats, but that means black voters are voting at dictator margins for Jasmine Crockett. Because, again, Houston's going to be probably a bit bluer or a bit more for Crockett than that. And that means that Tallarico's going to need the dictator margins in Austin and San Antonio. And I don't really know if I see that. But the betting markets haven't moved. So maybe they're just waiting for Austin. I don't know. But again, I don't know how this is bad news for Crockett. Is anybody can fill us in on what the self-described experts, the self-anointed experts on election social media have to say, because I'm not really quite seeing it. And if you guys can't see the numbers or need me to zoom in, feel free to ask. But it does seem as if Paxton, at least you're talking about a runoff here. A lot of urban vote in. That's going to be Cornyn's strong suit. The rural vote is going to be more for Paxton. I'm shocked he did so well in Fort Bend County. But we will see. We are about to find out. And then the question is, if it goes to a runoff, but Cornyn gets first place, what does Trump do? Where do the Hunt voters go? Because Cornyn has a giant war chest, and that's not good news. So in terms of these other elections, we can look at and it seems like you have some counties here. High-income rural county, very white, Tallarico. He's doing well there, but it's a very small county. It's not anywhere near like Fort Worth, where Crockett has an 18,000 vote lead, even if it dwindles. Again, it's early. And there is that possibility of a runoff as well. Sam Madsen says Tallarico's an Italian name, but it sounds Hispanic. That makes me think he'll do well with Hispanics in the primary. Well, he's not putting on the fake tan like Beto and doing that whole routine. But I do think that helps with like rural Hispanics. Sure, I've thought of that myself. He does have a last name that actually ends in like O. Tallarico sounds like it could be a Spanish name, even though he's not Hispanic himself and is like one of the whitest people imaginable, and not particularly in a good way. Let's see, 2nd District. We have nothing out of that district that is all important. We are also waiting for District 23, where we have nothing. Does seem like former MLB player Mark Teixeira, or however you pronounce his name, is going to win the 21st primary. He was endorsed by Trump. Another grift gone wrong for Valentina Gomez, who currently sits in single digits, far behind John Carter. It does seem as if these new districts, Ryan Binkley, who ran for president, is in distant second place with 20% of the vote there. So we're waiting on a lot more votes to come in. And it seems like Paxton and Cornyn probably go to a runoff unless there's some Paxton heavy support or some Cornyn heavy support, which I don't think you're going to see, because this would be Cornyn's strongest area. He did well in Dallas County for sure. It does seem as if Paxton has the opportunity to keep him well under 50. So it's not like Paxton's out of it, but Cornyn probably, sadly, has boosted his chances of becoming the nominee at this stage of the game. Again, 14% of the vote is in. It's a little bit early. On the Democrat side, Fort Worth, though, Tarrant County for Crockett. Crockett is doing, Fort Bend County, there apparently are more black voters there than we'd think. So maybe that's why she's up by 24. We will see what happens in Houston, where there's also a large black population, but also a large white population where white voters may be a plurality, if you will, of the Democrats there. So she's up by 11 points, and Cornyn leads by 6, but he's well under 50. This is well within runoff territory. And Paxton, given the votes outstanding, you could even make the case that he'd finish in first place. So do with that what you will. And anyways, we have another super chat that we skipped by accident. Love USA 12. Right now, Democrats are the biggest threat to the U.S. They hate the U.S. to its guts. They want it rid of its sovereignty and decimate it. If you vote blue in the midterm, you're a complete idiot. Yeah, tell that to the so-called, fringe right crowd that is now saying, burn down the GOP because, I don't know, they're not winning fast enough, even though they're winning. Like, it's a grift, but these people don't believe in anything. They're willing to hand the country over to the enemies. The people that literally have been cheering about murdering children in their group chats. And these are the so-called moderates, by the way, of their party. These are their moderates. You want to hand them back the keys. You think things are going to get better. Good luck. These people are agents of chaos. They want to destroy not just the Republican Party, not just the MAGA movement, but the country as a whole. So that whole vote Democrat, there's no tanking. You don't get to tank and get a better candidate. There's no better candidate down the line by losing. In fact, the country's going to change to the point where it's unrecognizable, to the point where you're never going to have a Republican win again. And that's what we're trying to fight against here. Leo Wolf the Red for 5 says, I prefer watching this than a live stream spurging about Israel. Unironically, let's go, Brandon. There's a lot of those going on these days. LD4 Ristentid says, what are the chances Tony Gonzalez loses his primary? Very high, but it's very early. I don't think we have any votes in. We could check. No, there's no votes in on either side from that primary. So we are waiting for sure. But Crockett, she's lost a bit of ground as Nueces County has come in, Hispanic heavy area, Talarico running it up there. So, it does seem as if some of these counties downstate that are more Hispanic are going to favor Talarico more as we anticipated. The question is, what happens in Dallas County? What happens in Collin County as well? That I think you could make the case would look similar to Tarrant in terms of how it votes. Denton County, it's a little bit younger. It's more of like a Bernie County. The Bernie bros are well behind James Talarico. Crockett's support is actually more moderate, believe it or not, just because black voters support her and they tend to back the establishment more. Even though her and Talarico are identical on the issues, they're both relatively far left. Talarico pretends sometimes like he's not, but again, when you're out there saying God is non-binary and you're trying to make your thing about, I'm going to break through to the evangelical Christians in Texas by basically blaspheming, I don't think that's going to work out too well. I think that you could make the case Talarico would be more fun to run against, but I think that it would take resources away because I think he's a slightly stronger candidate than Crockett would be, although I think he would have a problem with black turnout because Crockett would supercharge it, but in a state like Texas, that demographic is not going to really be determinative as much as like Hispanic liberal voters, which even though Trump has done much better with Hispanics, the Hispanics that remain on the left are very far left. We're talking like La Raza types and things like that, and they're very amped up over these deportations that we see now more than ever, and Democrats are trying to take advantage of that in the midterms. But we have a long way to go. 12% of the vote there, 14% of the vote in the Republican primary as we await more votes to be dropped here out of major metro areas. Now we're at 15%. Paxton gained a hair. Cornyn also gained by a hair as well. I don't know where those votes came from, but we're waiting on more counties. This is Kendall County. Is that county in the district that we're watching? It is not. There are no votes in for the 23rd district or the, I believe, 2nd district. No votes are in for the Crenshaw seat either. So we're waiting. We are waiting indeed. These also ran candidates are just combining for, I don't know why people waste their votes. They probably are just low information voters that just vote based on the name of the candidate. But Abbott has done much better than he did in his previous primary, at least so far. So, all right. North Carolina, we have really nothing out of North Carolina. Roy Cooper's going to run away with it. So far, Michael Whatley, it's just one county, less than 1% of the vote in, but he's only up by 18%. He's up by 8 votes. Donald Brown is running against him, although I don't think that it's really going to be all that contested. Although Trump didn't really make a play to campaign for either of these primaries that we've seen. He was in Texas, but it wasn't like he was picking a side here. So we will wait as more votes drop. And let's check Super Chats. We have more Super Chats here. Let's see. Rexa1296 says, I enjoy your work. Keep it up. Thank you. Love USA 12 says, Trump is doing your kids and grandkids a big favor by ridding Iran, the most lunatic adversary of the U.S. Its opportunity to get nuke and long-range missiles. You're an idiot if you can't see that. Well, I think people are just so, they have a lot of PTSD from weapons of mass destruction, which is more vague and which was not true. Now, Iran getting nukes, there's more evidence that they're trying. I mean, it's not like it's unprecedented of a country of like that level. North Korea has tried. Trump has worked to keep them at bay. But it seems like Iran is a bit harder with some of these people in that regime. So, I think a lot of people support the strikes. I think the people that don't are just looking for something to be mad about. But again, I understand the skepticism here. This is a conflict in the Middle East. We don't know what the end game is, but so far Trump is ahead of the curve on his objectives with expending minimal manpower. Sadly, a few Americans did perish in the counterattack, but we are getting a lot of their top people as it stands now. So it's probably going to continue, I think, for a few weeks. But if this thing is done by Easter, it's going to be a huge accomplishment, actually, for Trump. And I think his approval rating is going to go up because I think the length of the war and obviously how many casualties, those two things play a huge role. But again, Trump is somebody who shows restraint. So if he's going in, chances are he wants to go in because he knows he can win. He's going in at the right time. He had 5 years to do it. Now he's doing it. John Waffle says we can't afford a nation build. I agree. Although I think it's a little bit different with Iran because, like I said, their people historically have been not averse to regimes that are a little bit more favorable to the U.S., you could say. So we have more votes in. Hayes County, Talarico at 74% there. He's going to very likely run it up in Austin. Does he get to 74 there? There's going to be heavy turnout. Crockett still in the lead. No Dallas or Austin or Houston. So I think Houston might be what determines this. Again, I think you might rather be Talarico, but the early vote dump was very, very favorable to Crockett. I'm shocked she did so well in Tarrant County. I know they're not done counting for sure in all these places, but what goes down in Collin? What's the margin in Dallas? The betting markets are like all in for Talarico right now, but they were all in before. I think that you could make the case he wins it, but I think that it's not 97-3 in my opinion. Although we'll see how the Hispanic vote goes in the rural areas. That could, a little bit adds up. We'll see what happens in El Paso. It does seem like Crockett really did well in Dallas. Seems like she's going to hold her own in Houston, but Austin, could be the dagger. the Rio Grande Valley. It's not much of the vote, but could it be the dagger? Possibly. So all New Year says Little Fascists still get to live. Watch out, Jay Jones. Modern Josephus for 2 says, does District 34 have a chance to flip now? Well, Gonzalez is a primary challenger that's doing pretty well, but it seems, is that challenger from the left? Because that might be why. Also, Myra Flores not doing too well in her comeback bid. I will say that 12%, that's brutal. But we are waiting. Brian Reynolds has got to get good conservatives to win, energize our base. I voted for Paxton, and Herrera barely made the cutoff to vote after moving. Well, at least he got it done, so congratulations. John Jones says Tallarico's at 98% on Kalshi. UNS Connor for 5 says, how's Herrera doing? Hopefully he comes out on top. I don't think we have any votes. No votes yet. That one's going to be crucial. That one and the 2nd district, because it seems like you actually have a challenger for Crenshaw this time, and he got below 60% to somebody who is a relative no-name in 2024. Although if Trump's on the ballot, you could make the case the electorate's going to be more MAGA, but also more low info, and they may not know as much about Crenshaw, so who even knows? Dilly Bod for 20 says, people want utopia, but we are human, and it's human nature to fight over land resources and breeding rights. We eventually conquer the stars. We'll be fighting each other till the end of time. That's human nature. And that's true. I oppose endless wars. I don't oppose military action. We don't have boots on the ground in Iran. I don't know if Trump wants that. It doesn't seem like he's done. It doesn't seem like he's indicated that he will, other than maybe keeping them on their toes, which I think is the smart thing to do if you're going to negotiate. You don't want to seem like a dove. The principal dove types, I think, need to understand this, is that we have a world stage. It's not going away. And if you appear too weak, then nobody's going to fear you when it comes to this stuff. I think the end game is less Middle Eastern intervention, but I think you could make the case that Trump, at least from the way he sees it, intervening now means less intervention later, which some people could say, well, that's what was said in 2004, but Iran is kind of what has transpired out of that, and it is kind of like, in a way, the final boss in the region, where you can't really destabilize it by killing their Ayatollah who chants death to America. I don't see that as like a negative thing to whine about, but you still have some so-called right-wing nationalist types that are crying tears for Iran, and it's pathetic. Like, I understand the skepticism or, the uncertainty. I think praying for a success is the answer, not crying over the death of somebody who just hates this country, hates the West, hates everything about Western civilization, terrorizes Christians, unleashes terror across the Middle East, and would probably destroy America, or at least try to if they could. So I don't think that these people are worth defending. But obviously we don't want to involve ourselves in an endless quagmire like Iraq or Afghanistan that is just a road to nowhere. And that would be a stain on Trump's legacy. I've said that from the get-go. We'll say it again. But it's very early, and Trump doesn't go into things to lose. That's why he was against the Iraq War. So Paxton and Cornyn, seems like Cornyn being in first in round 1. We'll see what happens in the Houston area. That probably will be Hunt's strongest area. But let's see. I also want to see what the final margin prediction is. Now, Tallarico's at 90% on Kalshi. That is surprising to me. And they're saying he's going to possibly win by, as it stands now, 12 to 15. I don't know if I see that. They're anticipating big turnout in Austin. So, that might be what moves the needle. Austin has grown like crazy, but it does seem like the major counties in Dallas and Houston have tended to benefit Crockett. Even some of these rural white counties are benefiting her as well. So I think we have another couple counties surrounding, or did they put, what's going on here? I think they put some rural votes in. It didn't move the needle much, but Tallarico might take that lead soon. Cornyn's coalition is just strange. I don't even know what is going on here. I don't know what's really doing this. But it seems like a runoff is likely, which at least buys some time. But the Democrat side, they are anticipating a big Tallarico victory, so seems like that might be what we get. And I also wonder if that will dictate how the runoff goes, although Crockett got a huge dump from Houston. She is leading in Houston, but only by 9 points. She probably wanted to get more than that in Houston, but at least it pads her margin for now. Now, it would be interesting if this thing did, in fact, end up going to a runoff, which would be hilarious and force Democrats to spend even more money, but also would cause even more uncertainty. So Paxton gains a little bit with some recent dumps in some whiter rural areas. We haven't seen a lot of Hispanic counties drop either. So that's a little bit tougher to gauge. But Abbott, let's see here. Votes left. So you can see how many votes are left. They're estimating, well, there's more votes left in Dallas than there are in like Austin and San Antonio combined, or at least Dallas and Collin. But again, the rural areas, even though there's not many of them, they will probably add up to favor James Tallarico. Yeah, the black voters on the east side of the state probably do favor Crockett, but these rural counties that are, Hispanic, even some of them like Hispanic Republican counties, but the Hispanic Democrats that live there will probably back Tallarico over Crockett. But it's going to be interesting. But Paxton has narrowed the lead because Wesley Hunt got 18.4% of the vote in Harris County. That is Houston. He needed to do well there. And he didn't really do that well, period. I mean, Hunt is cooked, whether people like him or not. He did not run the best campaign. He was surging for a while, but maybe the polls were not that accurate this primary cycle. I think polling is just dead. Our polls have been accurate. We didn't poll this race. Maybe we should have, but again, these polls do cost quite a bit. We will fund them as we get closer to the midterms, but the primaries, I think we might just stay out of it unless there's really high-profile primaries later on. But Tallarico took the lead, as it does seem as if Travis County came in. He netted 70,000 votes. We're still waiting for Dallas for sure, but that vote dump there, and it is true. This is early vote. Maybe the margin declines or stays the same, but that is good for Tallarico. 76-23, probably about what's expected so far, but may not be as many votes as originally anticipated there. I'm not sure. Now they're saying around 200-some thousand. Dallas is going to probably have more than that, especially because they did extend the hours. But by how much is another question. And this is razor thin, but let's see, Parker County, that is in the DFW area, but it's whiter for sure. Tallarico's winning it 2-1. Very small count. Again, the margins there. It's all in the margins when it's a close race. All those rural white counties do add up. It is important to note that. So let's see. Jeremy G says Roy Cooper won. Water is wet. Daniel Krieger says, hey, Rep, it's been a while. I'm pleased to see Paxton's rapidly catching up in the polls. Is there a slim chance there won't be a runoff? I think you're going to see a runoff here because Cornyn's still in the lead. Mike Ferguson says Cornyn needs to go past the SAVE Act. I agree, but sadly he's in the lead. Obviously, he can't win outright given what's left on the map. He's up in Houston barely. Harris County might flip with Election Day votes if the Election Day votes are a little bit more MAGA. Cooper says, hey, Rep, how it's going? What are your thoughts on Paramount winning the bidding wars for Warner Bros.? against Netflix. Well, Democrats are not happy about it, so I can't say it's a bad thing, even though it's probably not going to change much. One Acquisitions 188 says, keep us up to date in the turnout numbers for D or R to show enthusiasm. I don't think enthusiasm is going to be that important because Democrats have more of a reason to have a higher turnout. A lot of Republicans could just say, I'll just vote in round 2, or they just are less likely to pay attention to something like a primary, which is a bad thing. That's why we have this channel to notify people of what's going on. But so far, it's just not the best result in the Senate race, but it's not like over. Let's see, the 2nd District. Steve Toth is up. He's up over Dan Crenshaw, and Gonzalez is up over Herrera by like 6 votes, and that's early. I'm sure the election day votes are going to swing hard against him. But Steve Toth up by 9 points. Yeah, Crenshaw, time might be over for you, buddy. Yeah, it's not looking good for him. It's early. We don't know where the votes are coming from in that district, but if this holds, that is awful news for, that's Harris County. You would have anticipated Crenshaw to do better there. Montgomery County, we could check the primary in 2024 in this race and see where he did best. I think it wasn't really all that determinative if we could have a look at it here. But Montgomery County, it was about the same. Crenshaw did better, actually, in the Houston part, but the district's a bit new. So you might have some new people that probably just vote for Toth in the seat. And Toth is winning the more Crenshaw favorable position of the district. So I'm not going to say that it's ready to call, because Montgomery County is a lot of votes, and we don't know how that's going to go. I'm not sure what part of Toth's district is where, but that would be a huge victory, because a lot of people said this was the least likely of the 3 rhinos to knock down. And it seems like you might have knocked him down if that holds. Now, the House is different because 1% of the vote, I wouldn't look into this much, but Gonzalez is still forced into a runoff there. So I don't think you can say that if he's in a runoff, it's like the end of the world. It just means that he's not taken down as swiftly as he should have been taken down. Same thing goes for the Senate race, by the way. Let's see. We don't have Bexar County in there. That's going to benefit. But actually, Crockett's doing well in South Texas compared to how Crockett is doing in the rurals. I'm going to assume that Tallarico did better among like rural white Democrats than Hispanic Democrats, because you're seeing like some of these Hispanic counties coming in for Jasmine Crockett, although it's not much of a correlation so far. But yeah, as I anticipated, Ahmad Hassan would do best in South Texas because it's like the protest vote for the legacy Dems. And you're seeing that tonight. So let's see. Mike E253 says, man arrested outside Paxton headquarters with ammo. WTF? Well, hopefully they got him before he did anything crazy. That based cat with a member chat says, did you see Chanks, who's done more damage to the world poll, get ratioed on X? Wonder if we'll have a meltdown when Crockett loses. Is he pro Crockett or is he pro Tallarico? I don't even know. Jamie DW for 5 says, I think Dems are grooming Tallarico for a run in 32. Oh, absolutely. They see him as, he's Pete Buttigieg, but straight. Yeah, like that's really going to move the needle here. Pete Buttigieg, it's not what he does behind closed doors. It's how he acts out in public that makes people so grossed out by him. And Tallarico is, I think, even creepier than Buttigieg from what I've listened to him say. And if he is the nominee, which it seems like he probably will be at this point, I know it's not over yet, but if he ends up being their nominee, I think that it will be fun to beat him, but it probably will be closer. So do keep that in mind. And again, like the Cornyn-Paxton thing, what I don't want it to do is back Trump into the corner where he gets cold feet and endorses Cornyn in the runoff, because I think if you're thinking the way Trump thinks, he wants the Senate seat. He knows Cornyn votes with him on most stuff. And if he thinks Cornyn is like by far and away more electable, and Tallarico's the nominee, which might pose a little bit more of a threat, I'm afraid that he might end up pulling the endorsement trigger for Cornyn. But I don't know. That would be something that we'd have to wait and see on. I don't know how much it would move the needle. But if Trump endorsed Cornyn in round one, Cornyn absolutely would have won. Same thing, arguably, with Ken Paxton, because like I said, 15%. That would be enough. And again, this big money actually helps in some of these races. Cornyn was a product of that. A lot of big money poured in that you saw going to him. And obviously Tallarico as well. He had a big fundraiser advantage, and still he's not winning by a ridiculous margin over somebody that jumped in the race at the last minute, and our home county's not even in the mix either. Nor are any election day votes, from what I understand, in the race as well. So for all we know, those don't benefit Crockett. But I think in some places like Dallas they will, where you don't have any votes in. But Collin County, Tallarico winning Collin County by 15 points, that was not fully anticipated given how Fort Worth has gone. But it is a more suburban area. Heavy amount of East Indians there. Although, to be fair, a lot of them are not citizens and don't vote. So, let's see. We don't have... It's just the coalitions are very intriguing here. But, yeah, Cornyn winning the Panhandle, that is... I don't know what's causing that. Wild and Crazy Bear says Cornyn may win because of Texas boomers. Sadly, you're not wrong. And that's the thing. The boomer electorate, I feel like maybe they just think that Cornyn's more electable. They're being like the electabro people, but I don't think Paxton would lose in Texas. So nothing new out of the 2nd district, but Crenshaw, he's down. And that's the early vote in his best county historically. So that's not the best news for him. Now we're waiting on the Senate race. Crockett's down now by 45,000 votes. Austin is in 60%. More counties dropped. Crockett actually seemingly is up in some of these South Texas counties. And I think both elections have very confusing coalitions. Like, this is not what you would anticipate. I don't think a lot of people saw Cornyn winning the Panhandle, and I don't think a lot of people saw some rural white counties going to Jasmine Crockett, although there is the crossover effect, and that's true, but who knows? And it is true. Having divisive primaries hurts you. It's a good thing Republicans decided to have one in a year where the Democrats also had one, because Republicans have been getting a lot better at getting rid of them. But Michael Whatley getting 64% of the vote. Not very high turnout in North Carolina so far, but as anticipated, Whatley is going to win. Roy Cooper, obviously, 92.3% of the vote. I'm kind of shocked he hit 90, but it's not that surprising. So this is interesting in the 1st district there. Arkansas, Tom Cotton, he's going to probably win easily. It's not like there's really anything going on in Arkansas. But Texas is where all of the attention is. And we're going to keep monitoring this. So let's check the 23rd district. Nothing new. Nothing new out of the 2nd district either. So we'll go to the super chats. Crunchkey says, what should we do about the job market? People are looking for an entry-level job. A lot of people are having trouble. Well, I have some theories on that. It does seem the whole tariff thing did not hurt inflation, but possibly caused corporations to turn to AI maybe a bit faster than they would have for certain positions. And we are kind of in that AI bubble. That doesn't mean the tariffs won't work long term, but in the meantime, the job market has been iffy. It started to pick up a little bit over the past few months, but then at the same time, you had the previous months revised down. The whole thing's a mess, but it was a mess before Trump, and it was a mess before the tariffs. So for the people that want to put it all on Trump, it's like, do people not remember the past 4 years? This economy has never been the same since COVID. It's been a disaster. Daniel Krieger for 5 says, I just stepped away in the second I come back. Crenshaw's down. Biggest surprise of the night. Well, night's not over. It is not over. There's been some twists and turns. Ken Paxton could very well end up in first place by the end of the night. I mean, he's only down by 4, and there's a lot of rural vote left. The only thing is that we don't know which way the rural votes are even going to end up going because there's no correlation here. I mean, even in the suburbs like Fort Bend County, it's Ken Paxton territory, but the suburbs of DFW are heavy for Cornyn. I don't know what's going on here. So people are saying Herrera's up. Let's check it. He is up, but again, 1% of the vote. But that's good. That's a good sign. 48-41. If he keeps that going, then he could avoid a runoff. But we're 30% of the way in. We've been doing this for about 54 minutes or so as we wait for more votes to drop here. Cornyn gained a bit as more of North Texas came in. So we will wait and see. But again, he's going to stay below 50. This one is going to a runoff. They might as well just project a runoff as it stands now, no matter who finishes in first place or not. But again, it does show the internet is not real life, and that's something people need to understand. Crockett had no support online on the online left. It was all in for Tallarico, but she's still holding her own. And then Cornyn obviously had no support, and he's in first. Hunt had some support. Hunt had more support online than Cornyn, but the low-info voters that are not on political Twitter, they have a different worldview. And I think it's important that people understand that. And how do you reach those people? Usually campaign ads, which Ken Paxton has not really had much of. And it is true that people do view Paxton as scandal-plagued, and that is true. You know, if it was just Hunt v. Cornyn, you could make the case that if Hunt ran a competent campaign, that he would have maybe had the chance to win 1v1, or at least force Cornyn to retire. But it's a tough call. So hopefully we'll see what happens in round 2 with Paxton, but maybe AG if Bondi steps down after the midterms. I don't know, but it's, again, he still has a shot to win. We're gonna have to wait like 6 weeks or so until the runoff happens. But let's see. Wild and Crazy Bear says Cornyn may win because of Texas boomers. I think we read that one. Let's see here. Dan of the Deadite for 5 says Democrats are the only party when you lose, you move up in the ranks. Yeah, well, that's usually good for us, because if that's what they're going to do and they're going to prop up people that lose, like let's say Tallarico runs for Senate, he loses. Could he try to run in 2028 and pull a Beto? I'm sure he could, and I'm sure they'd entertain it. You know, this is a guy, he goes on the podcasts, he does his routine, tries to fool some people, but it's like obviously fake when there's this much dirt about you talking about the border and immigration, and you talking about all these other things. People aren't really going to buy that as much as you think they would. Now, the rural votes seemingly are all over the place in this race too, but do favor Tallarico on aggregate. Crockett will do well in Dallas. She might even do well in these other counties over here where there's a lot of, like, you know, it's more like the deep South. You got alligators in certain parts of East Texas and a heavy rural black population that will benefit Crockett in those counties. But again, this is probably a race you'd rather be Tallarico in. The question is, what's the margin going to be? Could he get below 50? We'll have to see. I wouldn't probably bank on it, but again, I do think that the betting odds have just been a little bit too favorable towards him, because I think the online left does tend to be a little bit more favorable to him than the real world, where there's a Crockett sign on every corner if you're driving around certain parts of Dallas, and we don't have any votes from Dallas in. Now, let's check the House races, because everybody is talking about the 23rd. We have nothing new in the 2nd, and those are the two to watch. But incumbent down, that's definitely a warning sign for him. Now, I don't know what he does in the future, but hopefully you don't have these other terminally online candidates in the mix go out there and spoil the 50% plus one for Toth. Because if they do, then their pride is definitely gonna allow for a runoff where Crenshaw can come in, and probably they could find some liberals who didn't vote and try to get him to get them on board for him and have them carry him. So, I mean, that's definitely something to watch as well. I'm not too worried about it, given how Montgomery typically has been towards Crenshaw. But nothing out of San Antonio either. We are waiting on East Texas, Dallas for the Dems, and West Texas, some of which is not going to be in until now because polls have closed in the western part of the state. Gonzalez retook the lead, but just 3% reporting. He's below 50. Let's look at let's see. And also I want to see the Democrat side, because Vicente Gonzalez, he's not doing all that hot. Henry Cuellar, he has a primary challenger, but he's low profile. Nothing showing there. I'm wondering if the Trump pardon hurts him in a primary. It's possible that it could, but he isn't really facing a strong challenger this time. So let's check the 23rd. Gonzalez, yeah, he's up, but again, the votes are in all over the place. You don't have anything out of Bexar County. And in fact, I did want to check the 2024 primary as well in that particular district, because that's where you have to compare it to which counties are which again, it's changed. The map has changed, but at least let's check the runoff. Do we have, okay, this one doesn't even have the runoff here. But in round one, Gonzalez is strongest. He didn't do particularly well in Bexar County or the area surrounding it in the round one. So again, that is important to keep in mind as we look at this race here. And again, the other people in the mix are, again, if it's not 1v1, you know what you're doing. You're not helping. Go home. We need serious people. I don't know what these candidates, like, I understand you got your name on the ballot, but that doesn't mean anything if you can't win, but you're taking like minimal votes away. It's not like you try and then you fall a bit behind. Okay, that's one thing, but these people never had a shot. It's clear that there is somebody people unite behind, and then they still decide to get their name on the ballot and go from there and ruin the fun, ruin the party for everybody else. Like, okay. Well, but the primary challenger's not based enough. It's like, yeah, but they're pretty solid and you have no chance of winning, so why do I care? Now, it is true that the runoff helps for sure, but it's still wasting time, because you understand how the establishment can act between now and the runoffs, as we saw in 2024. And that's the issue with this. Like, I understand the vote for Wesley Hunt because there was a time when Cornyn was polling in third, but I think the polls were not all that accurate, as we can see here. And on the Democrat side, they were all over the place. So while they haven't called it for Tallarico yet, and I don't think they will call anything when there's votes that are outstanding, It's like we understand which way these races probably are going to go. But let's see. The 2nd district, nothing new. Nothing new out of the 23rd. So Commander John Fertus is voting Paxton in the runoff. I will do the same. Adam Nash, 1873, says vote Larry Sharp for New York State Governor. Tiny Warrior Hippo says Brandon Herrera was up until the last 1 second. Well, I understand. But like, it is true that there's a lot of big money that pours in. I'm shocked he even did that well in that primary. But, I don't know. It's tough. They harvest. They do things. But Texas has a pretty secure election system compared to other states. I'm not as worried as I would be about something in a state like California. But the base cats is due to my military status. I have the right to vote in either Florida or California. Which state needs my vote more? It depends. I mean, it depends on the congressional district you're in, honestly. I'd probably say Florida. But let's see. I think that's it for Super Chats. If you guys want to keep contributing to the conversation, you guys know exactly what to do. Feel free to send them in. We'll read all of them. Well, we are waiting. 35% of the vote. Kind of slow for Texas. You think they'd be counting a bit faster. We don't even know how many of the votes are in from Election Day. Like, Paxton's winning them by 12, but they're not that many. So the Democrat side, that's also interesting. Crockett, well, I think it's lagging behind. But it does say Crockett's winning Election Day in person, but she's not winning overall. So who even knows? Let's see what's going on at the congressional level, if anything. 4% of the vote. Gonzalez at 48, so he's still below 50. Let's see. The 2nd district, Toth up by 9. So nothing's changed in that district, but I do think Crenshaw probably falls short. So maybe a mixed bag of an evening for Republicans overall. I'm not particularly worried about the turnout gap, as I've said from the beginning, although you'll have people that will take that and run with it and grift off of it and say Republicans are cooked, because it's not like this hasn't happened like 4 even number election cycles since 2000 in the state of Texas, which it has. Even when Texas was objectively redder than it is typically seen at right now. So Roku fan says this performance by Paxton's alarming. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens in round 2, but I think that the big money is actually hurt Paxton. And this is what the establishment does in many cases. They will weaken you and they will bully you and they will browbeat you with this until you submit to them and say they're the only ones that can win. And at that point, maybe they have a point in that they have just unleashed this attack and divided the party. Although it would work against, this primary is going to work against whoever the nominee is going to be. So I wouldn't be too cocky about Cornyn, other than his fundraising ability and ability, I guess, to also overperform polling as it stands tonight. But I mean, this is still not good, because you don't want this dinosaur in there for 6 years. He could behave for 2 years, but it seems like if there's a Democrat in office, these people, they tend to, and again, with nothing to lose, he'll just go full, insane, and that's not what you want. So it is disappointing to an extent that he had a good showing, at least in my book. But again, it's not over. You're going to go to a runoff. You're going to see what happens there. But Cornyn still has a lot of money. And can Paxton compete? Is Trump willing to endorse him and possibly make an enemy out of John Cornyn in the process, who he needs votes on key things? That's another question that needs to be answered. And the only one who can answer it is Trump. But so far, Paxton's performance might not be inspiring enough to move the needle for Trump. to endorse against somebody in there. Maybe he stays out. Maybe he endorses both of them. He's gonna make a lot of people angry. I wouldn't be a fan of his endorsement of Cornyn either. But let's see. Let's see. Maronite Mike says you should run for office. No rhinos. Well, maybe one day. We'll see. It's not in the cards right now. It's not particularly in the cards as it stands for 26 or probably 28, but maybe sometime in the future. If Herrera does it, then I think that can show that you can go from YouTube to Congress relatively quickly. But again, we need more subscribers to do it. So hit the subscribe button, by the way. Like and subscribe. We have a lot of people here. We probably have some new people here. We're going to be doing this every Tuesday. There's a primary all the way till November. So these streams are just getting started. We have 3,000 live viewers. Again, guys, like the stream. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell as well. We're going to keep going. So the 2nd district, nothing new out of the 23rd. So we're waiting. We're just playing the waiting game. But let's see. We have approximately 37% of the vote in right now. John Cornyn leads by 4. Tallarico leads by 6 on the Democrat side. Same percentage of the vote is in for both. The total turnout gap overall is not really that wide. Some Democrats were talking about 400,000 more votes on the Democrat side. I'm not quite seeing that. But we don't have many election day votes in, and Crockett is still there, but I don't think that I wouldn't say that she's the favorite, obviously. I just think that people were a little bit too apprehensive initially with the swing towards Tallarico, and there wasn't, the evidence was all speculation. Both sides could make a strong case for why, but it seems like the race divide was even deeper than we initially anticipated, because it seems like Crockett's winning close to 90% of the black vote, but the white vote is really where it's going south, except for some strange rural counties. Hispanic voters are a little bit of a mixed bag, probably more of an urban-rural divide as we anticipated that there would be. But Hispanic turnout in primaries typically is not all that high. So there's still 180,000 votes in San Antonio. Plenty of votes remaining in places like Houston as well. Dallas and Fort Worth up there. So I don't know, but Tallarico is the favorite for sure. The question is, which way do the remainder of the ballots tend to favor? Obviously, Dallas is out there, but San Antonio is too. There's still plenty of votes in strongholds for both candidates. Now, let's see. Cornyn is up by 4.4, but again, well below 50. For all we know, Harris County's about to flip yellow for Paxton because that's the color he has on this map. They usually give the red to the incumbent on the New York Times. Let's see. So Cuellar, he's got, his primary challenger's getting 35% despite being a no-name. So keep that in mind. Now, we understand that these three guys are probably going to win their generals, but or not the 15th district, but Gonzalez and Cuellar probably would be maybe a little bit more vulnerable now looking at it than initially going in. The 35th district is going to be interesting to watch because it's Hispanic majority, but it's also Trump plus 15. I still think it stays red compared to these other districts downstate with the incumbents. But Gonzalez, he's up, but he's barely up. You might see another runoff in that district. You might. Let's see, Steve Toth in that district. Let's go back. I saw something change. There it is. Oh, wait, nope, I was wrong. So no new changes here, just more votes that are pouring in on both sides. We got 3,000 live viewers. Guys, like the stream. Let's get to 1,500 likes. Let's get to 1,500. So, all right. Commander John saying, people saying Paxton's going to win. He might win in the runoff. He might. But it's still very early. Toth leads Montgomery 62-34 on decision desk. I don't know if that's true. We get some trolls from time to time. But if that's game over if true. That would be game over. This is what happens. You run these online candidates against these people. I'm not talking about Herrera because he's kind of established himself. He ran a master class in 24. He's on the map. I'm not talking about him. But you have these terminally online people that run terminally online campaigns, and they get decimated by these people. But when you work within the system like a Steve Toth to topple one of these guys that many people in the MAGA side, America First side, despise, you can take them out. You can take them out. And that's how you do it. But it's still early. Michael Williams, is Crenshaw going to win? We'll see. Tony Nieves for 5 says, I hate rural counties report before the cities. The rural should band together to not report until the cities do. That solves many fears. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you're talking about in like a contested swing state, because they will hold back votes in the cities, and then a lot of people are asking many questions that, in fact, need to be asked about that. The Boris Shed says, always bet on people you hate. Well, I bet on Crockett, but I didn't think I'd do it knowing she'd win. I did it because it's like you could either bet $100 on Crockett and win $1,000 if she pulls off the upset when she's like winning half the polls, including some by like double digits. Or you could bet $1,000 on Tallarico to win 100. It's like I'm going to rather do the thing with Crockett because there's more of a chance that it's just worth it. But I tend not to do a whole lot of the risky stuff because I don't think it's a good habit to get into. But, you know, sometimes you gotta put some little bit here and there on some long shots you think have a shot to happen. I think that was one of them. But at the same time, I don't think she's going to pull it off. And I don't like either one of these candidates, for the record. Although I think Tallarico's actually even worse. Believe it or not, more subversive, more slimy. Let's see. We have more super chats. Sam Harrison says, "Can't wait to have you at Fairfield. Any recommendations on how we should promote?" I wouldn't know. I'm not in the PR department. Social media can help. Posters, I guess. I'm not sure. Probably DM about that sometime. Omega Tungsten for 5 says, do you think Ken Paxton can pull this off? What about, I haven't even looked at the AG race. We haven't had a lot of people talking about it, but we will look at that. We have other races down ballot too. Dan Patrick won easily. Chip Roy, 27.9%. See, this is what happens. You may be good on the issues, but if you antagonize the president too much, you're going to lose favor. When you're going to like try to be principled and cry tears for Liz Cheney, then you're going to lose your standing. Even if you are actually good on the issues, people are not going to trust you because you coal out, per se. You don't have the proper instincts, even if you can be solid. So maybe that's what's driving this. I voted for rights, but I haven't looked into Mays Middleton. I haven't seen anything. I haven't seen any advertisements for Mays Middleton. I've never even heard of Mays Middleton, but Mays Middleton is in first place. I haven't even heard of Mays Middleton. What do you think that means the average person? Now, the agricultural commissioner, I don't know what's going on with Sid Miller. I don't know why he's struggling here. Nate Sheets the rural areas like him, and that's It's not over, but I don't know what's going on with Sid Miller. I haven't heard much about that race, and Beau French is winning, and that's a good thing. We'll see if he wins the runoff, but I mean, what's going on with Sid Miller? If somebody could fill me in, I don't know what's going on there. But let's see. Films of Greatness says, why did Crenshaw lose? Don't normie cons like him? I think MAGA normies don't like him, nor should they. And Toth is a strong candidate. F. Marion 76 for 5 says, do you support any of the primary challengers against Lindsey Graham? Sure, I guess. So long as they keep their eye on the ball and don't venture down into like schizoid territory, then it shouldn't be an issue. But I think Graham's going to win anyways. That doesn't mean I like him particularly. But Paxton's closing in. He got it within 2.6%. So that's something. He's possibly going to end up in first place when the night's over, which is good. The Hispanics so far in South Texas are leaning a bit towards Cornyn, but not by a ridiculous margin. So Tallarico, so far, not a lot's changed here. Montgomery County, he's winning, which is to be expected, but he's only winning it by 21. That I assume is the early vote. A lot of vote left that Crockett could gain, but so far as more votes come in, she's lost based on where the areas are coming in from. But let's see. On the Democrat side, these primaries still close-ish in South Texas. Gonzalez leads by 0.2%. And in the 2nd district, Toth leads by 9. So it's not over yet, but you have to like what you're seeing if you're Steve Toth. And keep in mind, Trump endorsed Gonzalez initially, so that probably is helping Gonzalez, which is a bit frustrating. I think Trump sees Herrera as a potential like Massey type, but I think he's more like a Luna type, where you have your principles, but you also tend to support the president's agenda where it counts and understand how politics works, because that's the difference between somebody like a Herrera and a Massey. But Trump is very apprehensive about that because we understand Massey has just gone out of his way to make his entire diva persona about opposing Trump and Epstein files and all this stuff. And it hasn't worked out too well for him politically because he won't even vote on like immigration bills the right way, to the point where what does he really provide for the right at this stage in the game, whether people agree with some of his policies or not. Again, the guy's a congressman. He's not some dictator. He's not enacting them. But some people, I feel like, don't understand the system. They just want to be mad. They want a virtue signal into the void, which it might feel good, but it's not helping us. So nothing new out of the 2nd district. Let's see. We have Commander John says people saying Paxton's going to win. I don't know if we read that one. Michael Williams says Crenshaw going to win. I think it's probably clear that he doesn't at this point, but it is early. Sigma 2K21 says, is the Dem turnout something to worry about for the general? No, it's a primary. And again, it's like 2008. You had 2 contested primaries, but the Democrats were 1v1, very high profile, basically a race war. Same thing we're seeing right now, except did Hillary Clinton win that primary? I think Obama might have won it. I was not really that politically sentient in 2008, but no, Hillary won it, but it was close. Similar coalitions. Obama did very well in DFW. The only difference is Obama ran it up in Austin, but rural Texas and the Hispanic vote was particularly all in for Hillary Clinton. So there's that. Commander John says only voted Paxton because he backs Trump 2028. At the rate things are going, why not? It's like, I like Vance. I'm not trying to say that he can't have his time, but it's like Trump just manages to get these voters out that don't show up for anything. And he just has been the symbol of the right of the opposition in the country. And if he's doing such a good job, it's like I wouldn't be against it. I know he's old, but I still wouldn't be against it if he could run. But I think that he would rather just pass the torch. We'll see who that ends up being to. Probably J.D. Vance if Vance runs, which he probably will. Although it is true, he's only like 41. So if he decided to forego 28, he could still run in the future. It's just I don't think he would do that. If you're the vice president, you don't want to. Usually you want to run for president unless you were destined to lose like Dick Cheney in 2008. But that's a little bit of a freak scenario. Let's see. TM Sav 123 for 20 says, I'm happy the Staten Island GOP won the redistricting fight. State will stay with the Republicans. I'm happy Staten Island GOP won. Okay, it's the same thing, just twice, but I appreciate the super chat. Again, if you guys want me to stream next Tuesdays, gotta get to the goal to make it a certainty. So far, we're 8 out of 20 yellow super chats and above. So Dillybot for 5 says, I like how in the 23 they are counting the Dems faster than the Republicans. It's not that they're counting them faster. Typically, it's like there's just more Democrat, because all these rural counties don't have really any Democrat votes, but they have more Republican votes. So it's not really a 1-to-1. Texas has, the one thing you can't say about Texas is there's a lot of shadiness in the elections because Texas is a relatively well-run state compared to a state like California or even a state like Michigan or Pennsylvania where the door is open, but Trump just manages to outrun any shenanigans, beat the shenanigans time and time again. But San Antonio's in, and Tallarico not doing that well compared to expectations in San Antonio. He's only up by 15. So while that benefits him on net, he gains 18,000 votes. Might not have been as much as he would have liked to have. But there's plenty of votes left for him for sure. The question is, can Crockett make it up at all with Dallas and whatever's outstanding? Because it's pretty clear that in Dallas County, she probably gets, I would probably say, the mirror of what Tallarico is doing in Travis. Maybe not percentage-wise, but raw vote margin-wise, there's more votes for sure. That'd be enough to close the gap, but I think there probably is a bit more for Tallarico outstanding, although Crockett will end up running it up in some of these heavy black counties in the eastern part of the state and is surprisingly winning random places in the middle of the state for one reason or another. Same thing with John Cornyn, by the way. I don't know. Some of these primary maps, a lot of people say it's shenanigans, but I mean, I could go over these primary maps all day that are just the most schizophrenic maps in the world, even if it's a landslide. But, oh, look at this. Toth is at 58%. 58% of the vote is in. He leads by 18.4. That is a hydrogen bomb in Montgomery. This race might be over. That might be it for Dan Crenshaw's political career. Yeah, it took long enough, didn't it? But again, he officially will likely lose. This is a guy who's a clown. His entire persona is trying to police the right back into neoconservatism. His entire shtick is just we'll be a principled independent and then team up with the left on certain things. Whether his voting record shows it all the time or not is a little bit different. But this is a guy who supported gun control. He's very weak on immigration, particularly legal immigration. And now you have replaced him. He's the first one to go down. First night, you already got one, probably. It's not over. But you probably got him given where it stands now. Montgomery County, that's 6,000 votes almost on net for Steve Toth. That is brutal. I'm shocked. Like, I thought that'd be the race. Maybe it goes to a runoff. We'll see. But no, they got him. Now, Gonzalez and Herrera, that one is neck and neck, but 7% of the vote is in. I don't think Gonzalez wins outright tonight. Herrera might have a shot to, but it's a little bit early. Now, I am interested to see what the race would look like without Wesley Hunt in the mix. I don't know if that would help or hurt Paxton, and that might be a problem come round two, depending on where the outstanding votes are. This is just insane. Like, the Hispanic voters in certain parts of the Rio Grande Valley, like Webb County, they're going heavy for Ken Paxton, but Cameron County, they're going for John Cornyn. I don't even know what's going on. The coalitions don't make sense, but, I mean, the Democrat ones make more sense than the Republican coalition. But Tallarico's up by 7, but nothing in out of Dallas. Every other stronghold except maybe El Paso, but we don't even know how that's going to go because, you know, we saw how urban Hispanics didn't favor Tallarico by that much. But again, like I said, the betting markets, they're not lying to you that Tallarico is the overwhelming favorite. It's just, I don't know if there's enough to outright call the race because the 50% threshold is real, and I think that you could make the case that if Dallas splits a certain way, but Dallas might not be as pro-Crockett as people think. So that's why the New York Times isn't calling it, which is the right solution. But I think that the Senate race will be called soon as a runoff between Cornyn and Paxton, which probably is the worst case scenario that did not involve an outright Cornyn victory because it just more money, more resources, a waste of time. There are still Democrats out there that they could get to meddle in that runoff if they didn't vote in this election. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? But let's see. We have... Oh, this is a big vote dump in District 23. We're going to look at District 23 right now. Gonzalez has a lead, and it hasn't updated. It went away. Is it going to come back? What's the deal here? It's just slow. But Gonzalez had a lead that was like 42-35. So I think that Gonzalez probably loses the runoff as it stands now, but he probably ends up going to one, which is a little unfortunate. But let's see. Yeah, 45% of the vote, 45-39. He's not getting to 50. But that runoff is going to be critical. Absolutely critical. Let's see. These other districts. Elzey's having a challenge, but he's probably going to hold on. There's other districts here. There's a Cuellar that's losing on the Democrat side. The only problem is it's not the one we would prefer to lose. So, but yeah, that 61% is not doing him a whole lot of favors, I will admit. So we're just playing the waiting game, I guess. That's all we have to do for Dallas to report in probably around 30 minutes. So you guys can keep the conversation going. We have how many live viewers? We have 3,300 guys like the stream. We can get to 2,000 likes, hopefully. Send a super chat. The goal is about to expire, but we can start a new one. We got to 10. So, okay. Michael Williams says, I was excited when Crenshaw first arrived, but then he transformed into a swamp creature. Yeah, it's just what happens in politics. There's a grift window. You know when you see all the people grift in certain pet issues on corners of the internet and they think they're more relevant than they really are? It's the same concept with politics. They go and they grift on the Never Trump right and they think that they're doing something and they're not. Daniel Krieger for 10 says, just check. Montgomery dropped their vote and Toth is leading by almost 20. Crenshaw's gone. We saw that. Captain Calculus says, I have the popcorn ready for when or if Crockett loses. It'll be epic to watch the meltdown. I mean, is there going to be much of an online meltdown? Because the online Democrats seem to be all in for Tallarico. I think that maybe you get some people whining about, oh, she lost because she's a strong black queen, and Tallarico was the vote of the rural whites. I would love to see that. It would be hilarious. I just don't know if we're going to see much of that this time. I really don't, as much as I would love to see it. So Tatwiz 64 says, what happened to George Bush III? Are you talking about George P. Bush? He's the best Bush, but again, that's not saying much. But he did endorse Trump in 2016, which was very, very hard to do in that family, but he did it anyways. So can't hate him too much, but we're done with Bushes. I don't care how good you are as a Bush. You're never going to make it in national politics after what we witnessed. Tyler Patterson, 4042 for 10. Says, I love this show and I hope Paxton can win in the end. Well, I appreciate it and I agree, for the record. Ozark Christian for 5 says, hot take, Mamdani has the potential to become the progressive candidate in 28. A lot of Harris's working class supports might go to him. Well, he's not born in America. That's the problem. If he was, then yeah, I think the Democrats would be dumb enough to nominate him. I really do at this stage in the game. And maybe he's not as weak as he originally was because he won't be able to enact all of his craziness. But he would be running on it for sure. It would be a disaster. So we wait for Dallas. We wait for Dallas on the Democrat side. RoboGuy75 says Trump is a moron to endorse Abbott. He's the reason for the Islamification of Texas. He's not the reason why the national migration under Biden was allowed to be what it was. Like, look, there are problems with Greg Abbott and his virtue signaling from time to time. But again, the immigration thing is not a state issue as much as people think. He took action on H-1Bs. You could say because he had to, or because it plays well in the primary. It doesn't change much, though. Like, it does marginal stuff around the edges, and he does enough of that stuff. Like, yeah, he's an establishment guy, we know, but you're probably not beating him no matter what. And if you do, you can't really beat him with like an online candidate. We were seeing this in real time with Dan Crenshaw. Like, Steve Toth is up by 18 points. 19 points. Now, Gonzalez leads by 6, but he's below 50, and there's a lot of vote remaining. And typically, as it's been counted, as I can recall, in the runoff in 2024, the later half of the votes are far more preferable to Herrera. Fugitive Mind 1990 for 9. Dr. Nips for 2 says, just joined. Can I get a brief summary so far? Yeah, it seems like the Democrats, Tallarico's in the lead. It's not called yet. Dallas hasn't dropped. It could narrow. We'll see. And then Cornyn and Paxton probably go to a runoff, and Dan Crenshaw's career is over. And that much is good. Daniel Krieger for 10 says, resharing an earlier super chat, but at what % of the count does the early vote and day of vote begin? If no one has an answer, that's fine. Usually after the first drop, it counts more election day votes. They drop as a county. That's typically how it goes. Fugitive Mind 1990 says, how's Brandon looking in the 23rd? I don't know if he can win outright, but runoff is likely in the cards, and a runoff probably benefits Herrera because Gonzalez is a disgraceful piece of garbage, and I think everybody can see that at this point because the scandal was late. Even after the early vote, it got worse as it went later on. There's so much more dirt involved, and I don't think Trump wants to bail him out. It'll be a disaster, in my opinion, if he does, because the guy's just bad optics in general. In terms of Tony Gonzalez. FM32047 for 2 says, Patchy the Pirate and Al Green both might take an L. Well, Al Green I don't think was ever supposed to win. He probably will lose. Yeah, he's down to Menifee. Well, it's runoff territory. It's early. We'll see. But the guy is a clown. Even a lot of the Democrat voters there probably can recognize that, and that's why they're looking at someone else. Nicholas loves traveling for 5. Says, I know it's just the primaries, but I'm afraid fake moderate Roy Cooper will win this November. Well, look, yes, you're right that he might win this November. Probably you could even say the favorite because Whatley's campaign really needs to get off the ground. I know it's only March. We have a lot of time, but you're not wrong that he might win. But the primary has nothing to do with that whatsoever. He was always going to win 90% of that primary vote. That's not going to change. The Democrats they have more contested primaries in general in North Carolina. They're going to be running up the vote compared to the Republicans. Well, actually, they're not really compared to what I anticipated. So maybe not. BB says Tallarico might be weaker among blacks and Hispanics than thought. Texas Dems changed their chairman, might explain the turnout differential. I don't know if the chairman has much to do with it. I think it just has to do with the nature of the race. But we're waiting. Stuck at 45%, loading, nothing. And Gonzalez is down 45-40. So I don't know if Brandon's going to get to 50, but it's not going to be a walk in the park for Gonzalez. I just wish that they would update this map because we can't even see where the votes are. But oh well. Nothing new. We're just waiting for the votes to trickle in here. But the Republicans are seemingly catching up in turnout for now. I'm sure that will change when Dallas County drops, for sure. But they're still voting for 21 minutes. Let's see. We have Luigi DeBeast for 5 says, if Dems somehow win 51 seats and a SCOTUS justice resigns, will Fetterman break with his party to help Trump? Getting to 51. You'd have to win Ohio, Texas, and Alaska to do that, and I don't think they're winning either of those 3. And they'd have to flip Maine and flip North Carolina and hold all the states they have to hold. It's not something that we'd have to worry about, and Fetterman, if he does that, would do it to switch parties for re-election. I don't know if he's quite there yet, even though he can make sense. His voting record still leans left, but if he did switch, it probably would change, so I'm not against the idea. But John Jones for Tusas Herrera dropped in the betting markets. They're volatile. It's still early on. They're worth looking at for sure. But it's just a slow-moving election. We're getting there, though. It's just 48% of the vote. Gonzalez is at 45. Maybe they're just baking in the Trump endorsement for a runoff. That could be it. But I don't think that they understand the nature of the scandal. Because that is a brutal scandal to have. Affair with a staffer that commits suicide in a grotesque fashion, and you're just like denying that it ever happened. There's no remorse. Like, that's not something that you typically would say is a candidate that you should want to run for office in general. But someone said voters don't care. They have a 4-week memory. Yeah, they care. This is a primary, and the guy was vulnerable last time. It does matter. You can't say it doesn't matter. It is brutal. Now, if it's a general election, it might not move much. You're right. But this is a primary, and he's been, even before the scandal, very vulnerable. And you already took down one. And he's been quiet lately in Dan Crenshaw. But he still lost when you put up a serious candidate. Now you're going to probably get another one. And maybe even a senator, depending on what happens in the runoff in Texas with Cornyn and Paxton at the Senate level. But it's just slow moving. 79,000 votes separate the two. Dallas is still voting. As it stands now, Dallas is still voting. Jose Vega says, voted for Nacogdoches County, voted Hunt to lock out Cornyn, regretting that now. Keep up the good work, brother. Well, thank you. I told you guys the last few streams that Hunt's campaign wasn't going anywhere, and it seems like I was right. But there were those polls with him leading. But the primary polls are the worst. You cannot trust them. They were all over the place for the Democrats. They underestimate the way the money typically goes, too. And the money went favorably for Cornyn and Tallarico, although Crockett did spend a good deal of her own. She does have a solid turnout apparatus in the DFW area, as you can see from the map. But Joel's Plumbing for 5. Australian says, too many boomers only vote for the establishment candidate. They'll keep voting for the same candidate until they're off the ballot. Yeah. Or until they pass away, as in the boomer, or the candidates that are these dinosaurs that'll just stay there until, they're way past retirement age. Chumstun for 5 says our runoff's open to all voters. They're open to all voters who didn't vote in the opposite party's primary, for better or worse. So Marilyn Degatti for 2 says, will we lose the Senate if we lose North Carolina? I think that the answer is no, obviously. I mean, in North Carolina, I don't even know if I anticipate to win it. It would be the 53rd seat. Now, you'd lose net seats, but I don't think Collins loses in Maine. Not against that lunatic or Mills. I don't think that Democrats are going to have a walk in the park in the state of Michigan either. So it just depends on their nominee. I think Syed would lose to Rogers, and that would be huge. And hopefully Republicans in Michigan do the right thing and pick up a Democrat ballot, because they can do that there. Joel's Plumbing, he did that one. John Jones for 2 says, is Texas usually this slow? It's a primary. I mean, it's been only 2 hours. We'd like to get more election day votes. But yeah, it's a little bit slower than average, I would say, but not ridiculous. It's not like it's like a snail's pace. They're not Florida, but they're not California. They're not Arizona either. So Commander Johnson has voted Aaron, Texas AG. I'll vote Mays over Roy. Yeah, I got to do some more research on that one, but you might be right about that. XVMP for 2 says a Mississippi second waiting on Louisiana v. Calais. That's the VRA Section 2 court case. This guy's saying he's going to run. Well, we'll see what happens. Best of luck to you on that one. Don't be one of these candidates that's getting 5% and possibly screwing a pickup opportunity. But let's see. I think I missed one. I don't see it. I swear there was another super chat. It just went away. Oh well. Yeah, Gonzalez is at 46. If we could only see which part of the district is not in yet, it'd be a lot easier to determine how the rest of that election's going to go. Okay, now it's updated. 49% of the vote is in. And there's some counties. Let's look back at let's see if we could pull the runoff up. Let's just do that instead. If we could pull the runoff up. Okay, here we go. This is actually a better representation we're going to put on the screen here. And this was a nail biter. But you compare that to what's going on here. There are plenty of very small counties that probably benefit Brandon. And then you have Medina, Frio. Well, so far there's very little voting. Gonzalez is winning. We don't know if he's going to hold that lead if the election day votes come in a certain way. But if the later votes break away from Gonzalez, which is to be anticipated, I don't think he is going to make a runoff based on that scandal, which needs to be talked about a lot more. And I think Trump just needs to dump the endorsement, cut the losses, move on, take out the trash. This guy's really bad on immigration. He's awful on other issues too. And the scandal is just not good PR for anybody. So nothing out of Dallas yet. We have 12 minutes before the polls officially close. We'll see what happens there, but the Democrat primary has not moved. It has not moved at all. So, yeah, we're still waiting. But it does seem as if a lot of these rural counties that are heavily for Tallarico moving the needle, but Travis County was the big showing there for Tallarico. He has 104,000 votes cast for him there. That's a lot. But Dallas County is going to counteract it to an extent, probably not by enough. We're still waiting on El Paso. I don't think Hispanics broke for Tallarico by as much as a lot of people anticipated they would. Even in some of these rural areas, like, sure, he's getting in some of these counties like 58, 59% of the vote, but the white Democrats tend to be the ones that are far more in favor of Tallarico than they're in favor of Crockett. Now, could there be a problem with turnout among black voters come the general election? It's possible. It's a midterm year anyways, so it's not a very high propensity demographic. But this is a razor-thin race that is just not moving. Roughly around 10 minutes till the polls close. The base cast was Cheney's primary your favorite primary? Our stream went crazy. We had like 400,000 people stop by. So I think for the primaries, maybe by default, I think Super Tuesday would obviously take the cake there. But that was a fun stream because it was not very long and there were a lot of people that ended up stopping by. So, yeah. And anyways, guys, like the stream. We're almost to 2,000 likes. Let's get there. Hit the like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. We're going to keep this thing moving. So, we wait. We wait. Let's see. Nothing out of Dallas. That's to be anticipated, but it's insane that they switched the thing. It actually made it harder to vote, which is for either side, at least compared to 2025. You can't just vote anywhere in the county, which did make it convenient for the record, and I don't think it needed to change. The more people that vote in Texas usually helps out the Republicans, for the record. It didn't always used to be that way, but given the realignment, that is the way these things are moving. But yeah, let's look at the super chats here. We are currently just out of them as it stands now. If you guys want to keep the conversation going, feel free. Send in the super chats. You guys have been doing a great job tonight. We appreciate it. We can look at the leaderboard as well. Number 3, Love USA 12. Number 2, Dilly Bod. Number 3, Daniel K. with 1,750 XP. So he wins for now. But Crenshaw, how about that? Crenshaw, he's done. He is done. They haven't called it yet, but he's looking like he's going to be done. Spider-Man for 2 says, why is Chip Roy getting trounced? I think it's just it's the Trump counter signaling. He couldn't read the room. He had an alliance there that went out the window. And now he's paying a political price for it. I'd have to research Mays Middleton. I don't know much about Mays Middleton. Ken Paxton has big shoes to fill. So, this isn't like this is a race that, it doesn't matter who wins it. I mean, the Texas AG, Paxton single-handedly was able to take on the Biden admin and really was that bulwark against a lot of very, very, very bad things. So you need somebody tough in that position. He's one of the reasons why Texas is as red as it is. Whether people see him as corrupt or not. I think that they put on the ballot measure. I don't know if we have that in terms of the results here. But there was a ballot measure that limited on the ballot the this tradition where they put Democrats on committees. So we'll see what happens there. But we don't have any of the results as it seems. Okay. Oh well. But this will probably go to a runoff, and Chip Roy, there's some more votes out here for him. Who knows what will happen there? He might get some of the rights vote, but if Trump endorses Middleton, then Middleton probably gets the rights vote. Not right as in direction or political right, but the guy, Aaron Reitz, with the Z. Tallarico still at 53. So Dallas in 6 minutes. Hopefully they drop sooner than later. We have yet to see what will happen there. As for El Paso, nothing out of El Paso. Let's see how many votes they anticipate will be there. 68,000. Probably gives Tallarico another, 10,000 on net if I had to guess. But the election day vote hasn't been moving much. That's like the thing. 1.1 million Republicans are right behind, 4,000 votes behind. But again, Dallas has dropped for the GOP. They have not dropped for the Democrats. And I anticipate Paxton to win the election day vote. Question is by how much. Crockett, they said, would win the election day vote. I don't know how true that is, but we'll see. I think either way, Tallarico's probably got that one. Commander John says, can you check the Texas GOP proposition results? I didn't see that on the New York Times. But I think that the lion's share of them will pass. Brian Reynolds for 5 says, first time voting here. What's up with the questions at the end of the ballot? Yeah, those are official measures for better or worse because so many people don't know how to vote on them. Direct democracy was not what this country was built on or designed on, but that hasn't stopped people from making it happen. Jesse Hughes for 2 says, shout out Patriot Lounge. Exactly. Shout out to if you know, you know. A lot of people here don't know, but some of you might. Probably like 4 of you. Who knows? You know who you are. Let's see. We have the Huntsman by half says, think Paxton will get more votes than Crockett or Cornyn. Avoid a runoff. No, I don't think he's getting to 50. Now, people could blame Wesley Hunt for that, but I honestly don't think with or without Hunt he would get there. You could make the case that Hunt would have been like taking more votes away from Cornyn because these are people that don't really like Cornyn but also don't like Paxton. I think it's like 50-50. Maybe more from Paxton, but it just depends. It's really hard to tell. So more votes are in on the Democrat side. I don't know where they came from. But regardless, Crockett dipped a tad. Tallarico went up a bit, but we're 3 minutes away from polls closing in Dallas County. We're right on the verge of the next hour. It's ridiculous they couldn't manage to find a way to tell people where to go, so we have to wait. Let's go back down to the House races. Gonzalez, 45%, well below 50, half the vote in. Toth over Crenshaw. Again, nothing's moving, guys. Nothing is moving. And something moved, and nothing really happened. Brian Reynolds says, thanks, they worded those like platform questions. Yeah, I think it was only for Republicans, which makes sense. So I think we know how they're probably all going to go. I voted against one of them. I voted against the term limits one. Because I just don't think that term limits are the solution to the problem. Like, you get somebody really good in there, or you get somebody really bad in there. You get the good person in there, they're going to be voting the right way, and if their time is up, then they're gone. And the establishment can just pick a part. Like, I don't think it's not a solution. It was more of a symbolic vote, because I didn't think that they really understood. Like, for like governor and stuff like that, is it really necessary? I mean, some people will say yes, some people will say no. Because if you have like a person that's good and will win, who even cares? That's my take on it. I think for Congress, maybe you could say people won't be able to make as much money off of it. You'll have less like grifters. It's more of a different ball game. I get it. But all these people do at the state level is just run for different offices anyways. There's a lot of corruption in plenty of states with term limits. I just think that the fixation on it is not the solution. That's the main reason why. And some people are going to disagree with me, and that's fine. But look, when you have somebody like Trump, he's winning, he's helping us, and he can't even run for a second consecutive term. Who knows what's to happen to politics? Obviously, Vance or whoever is going to take the lion's share of that coalition. And I know Trump is getting a little bit up there in age, although he still has it. I mean, that State of the Union was, on point. Gav WTF says, who's the best Democrat senator other than Fetterman? There is none. They don't have any. Like, then you'd have to be looking at like the far left and who bucks their party there, because it would technically help out, but they don't do that when it counts. They're not like these, like they don't have a Thomas Massey. Wyatt says, would you support abolishing the 17th Amendment? The 17th Amendment, I believe that's the one of the, is that the income tax, or is that the, no, that's the senator's one. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe it would help us, because it just depends on which state senate, because you're voting for the state senate, and then they'll vote for the senators. Maybe that does help us, given geography helping us with these redistricting maps and things of that nature. It's just not going to happen, though. It's just a hypothetical that is very unlikely to happen. It's fun to think about, but it just won't. Get Gilead corrected the pronunciation. Any hope for Asa Buckout, or has Buckout won the primary in the 1st district? Love to show you're part of my trusted daily news. Well, I love to hear that. Let's check North Carolina, because you sent in the super chat. The 1st district, Buckout is in the lead, but it's close. I believe they have runoffs, but the threshold is 30%, if I'm not mistaken. That's where the threshold is. I could be wrong, but it seems like Buckout would win outright, because she would be over the threshold. Commander John says, Trump 2028, that's how we win. Like I said, it's just probably not going to happen. And you will have a segment of the electorate that will be like, oh, he's just doing it for power. He wants another term. But then maybe you get Obama running against him, and then that changes the game. And I think that would be one for the ages, for sure. But I think it would just depend on the economy as to who wins it. Because that's really the thing. The economy does dictate the election. And if the economy is strong, which it's getting better, there's a lot of hope for the economy. We're just not seeing a lot of it right now. But as the economy gets better and improves throughout Trump's administration, that should help Republicans. And also, they have a very high floor electorally. You're talking about just winning 2 or 3 states to get to 270. So the floor has risen. And that's a good thing. That's why we got to keep states like Texas red when it's a year that Democrats are trying to catch us off guard, and we don't want to lose everything, because that's what will happen. You lose Texas, you lose the country for good. That's the way it goes. And Tallarico is no moderate. Not in the slightest. So it's 9:03, nothing out of Dallas. You'd have to imagine they've been counting the ballots in Dallas up to this point, because I can't imagine that they've had very many ballots left over, but they can't report them. K. Malden 03 says, I predict Flores wins in Texas' 34th primary. Yeah. Which one? Probably Eric, if he holds over 50. He was much higher. Now he's fallen, which is crazy because Mayra Flores was the representative there, but I guess she's fallen out of favor since. I don't know what did that, but let's see. Anything new out of the second? No. Gonzalez is up 45-40. Okay, seems like is El Paso in? It is. Tallarico did well there, but he only netted 10,000 votes. Dallas should be interesting. I think that they're going to wait until Dallas drops before they do call it for Tallarico, but who knows? Crockett could net 100,000 votes out of Dallas, and however the remainder of the votes go is yet to be seen. It seems like Tallarico probably has an edge there, though. The question is, how much in Dallas are they anticipating? And it seems like they're anticipating 312. Yeah, if they go 2-1 for Crockett, which would be roughly what you would expect, she would gain 100,000 votes-ish, which would put her in front temporarily, and then you just kick back and watch it play out. But who even knows? And I wouldn't anticipate that much on the first drop either. I would anticipate probably around, I don't know, let's just say 50,000, 60,000. So she wouldn't even fully get there, but it would make things a bit more interesting. It would make things a bit more entertaining if they drop Dallas, and they drop something, but we don't really know what it did, and it's still an 8-point race. So we're not seeing it. We're not seeing anything. There's still votes in Houston, but then again, it's like on the flip side, there's votes for both of them, and Tallarico's in the lead. So when Dallas drops, at least you know what the remaining math is here. And we're still waiting on that. So, again, Paxton is still down, but is probably going to a runoff. I don't know why they haven't projected that yet, because it seems like the remainder of the ballots are going to favor Paxton, but not by enough for him to go out there and get to 50% of the vote. So I think a runoff would be the proper projection. But down goes Dan Crenshaw. Steve Toth is currently up by 19. Yeah, he's not losing that. Gonzalez is still at 45% with 55% of the vote in. I think that one goes to a runoff. Let's see. The governorship, Abbott with 83%, a big improvement from his 2022 performance. Democrats nominated Gina Hinojosa, and we will see what happens there, but I think it's pretty evident that she is going to lose handily, regardless of whatever happens in the Senate race. But we're still waiting on Dallas. Please just drop. because we can't end the stream. We're not going to end it yet, obviously. There's still some races that we have unresolved, but I think that it would make things a lot more interesting if something happened. It's like you have the meme with the guy with the stick that's poking, saying, come on, just do something. Well, we're waiting. No Republican vote in Travis County. I guess they're doing the opposite thing Dallas County's doing. I have no clue. But I thought Texas would count faster. Maybe it's because you don't realize it, because on election night, Texas, you know, you're busy looking at Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. You're not looking at Texas, but you at least would imagine that half the vote would be in by now. This primary was just poorly conducted. And it's also the first primary they're conducting with this new format of you go to a different location if you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, because I don't think that they had that before, and I could be wrong. So, yep, the Wesley Hunt vote, that's a big what if, but if Cornyn comes out on top and that splits 50-50, doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Besides, would Paxton get 9 out of the 13%? He would need 9.5% to get a runoff, because you have these other candidates in the mix, and some of the anti-Paxton vote would have gone to them if they're anti-Cornyn as well. So someone said discuss the North Carolina federal races. Well, we have. It's just nothing new is happening. Roy Cooper won big. Whatley won big, but he won by less. But he still got 65% of the vote. Another strong performance from a Trump endorsement. But he needs to pick that campaign up, or you're going to have Senator Cooper. I will say Cooper's overrated as it comes, but if you can't pick that campaign up, then it's not going to matter, because Democrats are fired up, and we have to be just as fired up as they are. No more infighting come the general. You know what the left said in 2018? They were as divided as it got. They said vote blue no matter who, and they won big. We have to do the same, because we're getting rid of the rhinos in the primaries. You're getting rid of the Crenshaws. You're getting rid of the Masseys, even the grandstanders. Like MTG is gone now too. Just vote red no matter who. That has to be what we do. Yeah, the Austin votes. Yeah, Cornyn won. I mean, that's to be expected. I mean, that is a very liberal area. You probably have a good chunk of voters who still crossed over into the Republican primary. I mean, Nikki Haley, I don't know if she won that county, but she made it close. Let me see if we could pull this up. Yeah, she got 36% of the vote there. Now, it's funny. Not a lot of people know about this, since we're waiting on Dallas. We can go into some election history trivia. Kent County is a rural county. All these counties around voted 90-10 for Donald Trump. This county is just as red, but it was an error where they added a bunch of votes to Haley. They certified it wrong, and they didn't bother to change it. So we have to deal with this for the rest of time. Nobody cares, because it's a primary. Trump won it big. It's 70 votes. But to people that say election shenanigans don't happen, when people are just very incompetent, I'm not even saying, this is not maliciously done, by the way. There'd be no reason to do it. It is a very Trump county. The people certifying the ballots are probably pro-Trump. But like, that stuff can get by just based on general incompetence. But they think that people can't take advantage of a ballot harvesting system, that you can mail everybody a ballot and call it the most secure election system in the country and take 3 months to count the votes. That's just ridiculous. That alone is proof why Gavin Newsom should not be the Democrat nominee and why he should not be president. Just the general nature of politics aside, you're not a competent person. In fact, you made everything a hell of a lot worse. And that's the problem. Now, Kamala Harris got involved in this race and endorsed Jasmine Crockett. Seems like she got some egg on her face. I don't think it's going to matter at the end of the day. I think she knows that Crockett is a key player in the Democrat Party regardless of what happens. She's a loud voice, and Kamala Harris wants that support. She knows that she needs to have a strong performance among black voters in South Carolina. And for all the people that like to overrate the Jim Clyburn endorsement, she probably has just as much pull. And Texas is an early state too. The black vote in Texas, yeah, I mean, you got to make those deals. Now Crockett's more likely, regardless of what happens, to endorse Harris. So that was a smart move on the part of Harris. One of the only smart things she's ever done. So maybe I hope her campaign is strong because she's easier to beat than Newsom. Although, like I'm not afraid of Tallarico, I'm also not afraid of Newsom in particular. PC Gamer Fly says, would you be in favor of abolishing the... See, it's like, these are like these like right-wing fantasies that people throw out on the table. This is never going to happen. Like, would an alternative timeline be better? You could make the case. There'd be a lot less liberalism without it, but it's just not going to happen. And it would be like electoral cancer to even discuss the topic. So, I don't know. But Big Dan T for 20 says, do you think that Herrera can win in the runoff? I think that he can. I don't see why he couldn't. I don't think Trump is going to stick his neck out for Gonzalez. He almost won the runoff last time. I don't see why he couldn't with the scandal this time. Pax Tatarica for 10 says that tracking voting methods with the Texas 23rd District real. Let's see. Because that's behind... Election day in person. Well, now hold on. I mean, if that number is true, then that's even better news. Whether Herrera wins or he picks up the steam or not is irrelevant, because in a runoff, that means the momentum already moved against Gonzalez, and the scandal really hurt him if he's underperforming by 30 points. I mean, my goodness. And I mean, it seems like Gonzalez was down in like the single digits on the betting market. So that's true for the guy that super chatted about the betting markets. I don't think it's much of a concern what's going on there. I think we're gonna get him too. I just think it's probably not gonna be tonight. We'll check Al Green. The gift that keeps on giving for Republicans in Congress. Although it would be funny to see him lose too. And yeah, he probably goes to a runoff unless the Democrat can get over the hump and get to 50%. But we're waiting on Dallas because Tallarico's lead just keeps going up as the map fills in, which is largely to be anticipated given where his coalitions are. And now, boom, there it goes. Jasmine Crockett narrows the lead. However, she's only netting 43,000 votes out of Dallas County. That's not going to cut it. Tallarico is going to be the nominee. That's official. Because, yeah, 61%. Maybe it goes up. Maybe it goes up as Election Day votes come in. But, I don't see it right now being enough, even if it gets closer. If we see the vote method, we can't even see the vote method. I think they took it away. But regardless, it does seem as if Crockett will not be the nominee. So, again, Democrats... They learning? I mean, probably not because they nominated another lunatic. But it's crazy. This is like a race war on the Democrat side because the white Democrats are voting 70% plus for one guy, and then the black Democrats are voting like 80% for Crockett, and then the Hispanics are voting for Tallarico probably because of the O in his name is probably playing a role in that. But they're not voting for him by as wide of margins as white voters are voting for him by, depending on the location. In some of these places, the rural vote went for Crockett, so that's interesting. Although some of that could be influenced by crossover votes. But 54% of the Republican vote is, now it's 55%, and Ken Paxton, he is down by 2.9, but again, this one is going to a runoff almost certainly. I don't think that there's enough math for Cornyn to get to 50 or Paxton to get to 50. Even if Paxton ends up passing him, I don't think he's going to get there. So Democrats, it narrowed with Dallas, but that's, apparently Ellis County is all in for Crockett for some reason. Kaufman County, all in for Crockett. Dallas, where black voters make up the largest group among Democrats, didn't quite cut it because I guess Tallarico just ran it up with the younger white Democrats, and that's why he is probably going to be the nominee, because that Dallas margin, unless it miraculously expands, which there's a lot of votes left in DFW, and maybe Crockett wins the remainder of the votes, it's not going to matter because she's still down even with Dallas in. She's down by 70,000 votes, but it's a relatively close race for sure. Entertaining. It just went by slowly. But now they're at 1.4 million, Republicans down at 1.2, but they have a lot more room to catch up with the counties that have not yet reported. So we're about to find out what happens there. But I'm kind of more intrigued about the House primaries than the Senate primary at this point, because this, if we can pull this up. So Steve Toth's probably going to win the 23rd district. If that is true, what we saw about the 30-point split, then that could, look at this. Gonzalez is down to 44.8. Now, I don't know if Herrera has enough math to get to 50, but look at these other people in the mix taking up the votes. That 15% is not voting for Tony Gonzalez. I can tell you that much. So runoff time, probably. That'll probably be a victory for Brandon Herrera as well. But there's 44% of the vote left that probably does benefit Herrera significantly. And there's 13,000 votes left in Bexar County that probably will. And to get to 50%, he'd need at least 3,000 votes on net. I don't know if he's gonna get that. But that is interesting for sure. But we wait. It depends on election day votes for sure for the Democrats. But Tallarico, you would much rather be Tallarico than Crockett, even if it narrows. On the Republican side, I don't know who you would rather be. You could make the case for either in the runoff. But I think it depends. What does Trump do? Cornyn has a lot of money in his war chest. I don't know if Paxton can compete with it. As much as I hate Cornyn, I don't know if I'd bet against him right now, but it's not over. Paxton does have a lot of support. He can possibly get the Hunt voters. It depends on who shows up, but any Democrats that do cross over in the runoff probably vote for Cornyn, but maybe they would vote for Paxton if they think he's easier to beat. So, again, you just don't know. It's a lot that could happen. There's a lot of time between now and the runoff as well. So I'm not trying to doom necessarily. I just don't know. I'm trying to look at it objectively here. We did that one. BB says, I'm wrong to be blackpilled right now. Well, I'd say yes. Unless you think that Jasmine Crockett being the nominee was the be-all and end-all for Republicans keeping Texas, which is just not true. Like, would it be an easier victory? Yeah, I would say so. But is it going to be fun to bash Tallarico for the next 8 months? Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm kind of like tired of seeing the guy's smarmy face, and probably will get tired of it, but when he loses, it'll be more... See, if Crockett loses, it's like, okay, haha. If Tallarico loses, I cannot wait to... When he loses, we will say when he loses, it will be a lot of fun to torch these people on the other side. We'll be nice. We'll say people on the other side. T. Birdman says, Dems went to the wrong precincts in Dallas. Yeah, it was confusing. I did as well, to be fair. Jeffrey Largent for 5 says, just checking in and pleasantly surprised to see how poorly Eye Patch McCain is doing. Yeah, he's done. That's a win. I think there's a lot of positives here. Q2 Spire 2 for 5 says, what would you say the mindset and reasoning for people voting for Gonzalez? They don't know the lore, and Trump endorsed him. That's it. It's the same thing as people that vote for Cornyn. Like, why would anybody be excited to vote for this guy in a primary? The problem is, who votes in primaries? People that have been super voters, boomers, and then these people that complain about and to an extent rightfully so, that the Republican Party is a disaster. Well, not voting in primaries or voting in a general election means that they're not going to cater to you anyways. So it's kind of dumb line of reasoning. But, I mean, Paxton had his fair share of scandals, and people are concerned about electability in a possible, I don't think it's going to be much of a wave year, but a Democrat-favorable year on paper. So I understand the rationale. I don't think Cornyn is leaps and bounds more electable. Flash DRC says, who gets Hunt's voters in the runoff? Good question. Could come down to the region. Look at this map and tell me that there's like coalitions here. Like maybe you see Austin and Dallas going a little bit more for Cornyn, but then Houston area is going for Paxton, including like places like Fort Bend. So I don't know. Trev Time, 2023 for 5, says Texas Supreme Court made a new ruling on the Dallas votes. The later ones might not count. I mean, I don't know what's going on. You waste our time for 2 hours and then nothing comes of it. It's just ridiculous. I don't know what's going on here. It's the whole thing. The whole thing's a mess. Daniel Krieger, 9436. Who is the number one in terms of the chat tonight, according to the top fans that YouTube has, says, I would make a Emilio Largo joke about Crenshaw. I don't know how many people here are 007 fans or if they saw Thunderball or read the book. I have no idea what that reference is, but that one oddball for 2 says Decision Desk says Cornyn and Paxton in advance of the runoff. That is true. I mean, that's clear. It's probably clear Tallarico advances as well, which sucks because, I mean, the one thing that does suck is that Democrats now have an extra, I don't know, X amount of time to campaign. So I don't know what happens at this point forward. We'll see. The runoff could go one of 2 ways. It seems like the super voters are still not aware that John Cornyn is not their guy and or just really don't like Ken Paxton. I think it's a mix of the both. But this map is filling out. And that it is. It just isn't making there's just not a lot of correlation. It might correlate to like a primary. Like, it might correlate to the primary for the AG's race in 22. Do we have that? We do have that. Let's see. Well, that's not going to be very helpful because Paxton won all the rural counties. But again, by what percentage point? You know, it was all over the place. But let's see. Nothing new on the Democrat side, but it's probably going to be a Tallarico by 5. That was a lot of people's predictions. I'd probably, say that it was a jump ball. It pretty much was a jump ball at the end of the day. So we will wait. We will wait on the runoffs for sure. But we would like to see more out of the Texas's 23rd congressional seat primary, if we can. And we don't have anything new. So we've been live for 2.5 hours. I don't know. K-Dog for 5 says, I'm not too worried for Paxton. A vast majority of Hunt voters will vote Paxton instead of Cornyn, or at least I would imagine. It depends. I think the online Hunt voters would, but who knows? The less online voters clearly have minds of their own. But we're stuck. I don't know. Should we keep going, or what's the deal here? Because we already know who's pretty much won. James All Day TV says, who do you think will win Byron Donald's old seat? I don't know. There's like 50 people running, and none of the people running are from there. So I have no idea. Should be interesting, I guess. That'll be a fun primary for sure. That'll be a lot of fun. We're only getting started. Midterm season is back. And it is much harder to predict a midterm election than it is to predict a presidential election. That much is true. I think we know that firsthand. But the primaries are the hardest to predict because there's always surprises and polling is always all over the place. The Ant-Man channel for 5 says Fuentes is endorsing Gavin Newsom for 28. Any idea why? Because he's literally just, his existence, whether intentionally or not, is an op to destroy the right. And that's why they give him the front page in the New York Times. That's why he is telling people to vote for Democrats now, like outright saying vote Democrat to spite. What happens if Trump's Iran project operation is wildly successful? Does that justify voting for the people that are going to try to throw American patriots in prison and open the borders again? Because all that stuff's going to happen. Any progress we've made will be erased in an instant if the other side gets power. The midterms are important, but the 2028 is arguably even more important. And that is when the country is at this point where you either take a step further and build on Trumpism, or you decide to pivot back to the other side, and then the establishment gets to claim the mantle in 2032, and then they're just the opposition party, business as usual, then everybody's disaffected. The answer is no. These people are clowns. They don't want to win. They want to grift. They do their thing, but they're not winning. And they really overstate their influence. They do not have nearly as much influence over the demographics they claim to have influence over. In particular, it's entertainment for some people, but it is destructive, because when you talk about, if you tell everybody to vote Democrat and the election comes down to 10,000 votes in a state, and you have 5,000 cult members in that state that show up and vote Democrat, yeah, do you think you're going to save the country by voting for these people that literally, in many cases, want you dead if you disagree with them? The answer is that you're a moron. But then again, this is the same guy who opposed Trump in 2024, has not voted in 6 years. So do what you can. Take their and notice how they never can hit back with anything of substance. It's always just ad hominem attacks and whining about botted viewership or something of that nature. Whatever. Do your thing. You're irrelevant. You guys are not going to win anything of note, and I cannot wait for James Fishback to get destroyed in Florida come August because it's going to be hilarious. This guy's the biggest lol cow candidate that I think has ever run for office. It's going to be funny. It'll be funny. Let's see. But we're waiting on more super chats to load. We have several. John Jones for two says Paxton tanking in the betting markets. I can understand why he is. Caesar Hurtado for 5 says, give me less eye patch McCain's and more Thomas Massey's. It's been a while. So how about less of both? This guy says stop dunking on Massey. My problem with Massey is that he's a grandstander. It's not that he has principles. If you're voting against a bill, and this is words from the candidate that is running in Texas's 23rd. If you're killing bills that are 3% bad but 97% good out of personal spite, that's not the answer. Like, if you're voting with the Democrats, if you're Jasmine Crockett's, who just lost, by the way, favorite congressman, I don't think you're doing something right. Like, that's my issue with somebody like a Thomas Massey. So it's not about, somebody said about omnibus bills. He voted for several of Biden's omnibus bills, though. That's the thing. My number one issue is immigration. That's the only hill worth dying on, in my opinion, because if you can't control who's in the country, you lose the country. That's just the way it works. And if you're not willing to take a stand on that, then I don't care what your opinion is on spending, because you can change your budget anytime. But when you want to import all these people who vote for the government assistance, you're going to get it anyways on steroids. That's the issue that I have, is that these people don't have the ability to prioritize. And it's not just Massey. I mean, you have plenty of people in the Republican establishment that don't understand this, even though we're waking up to an extent. Like Marco Rubio, I think, finally understands that, yeah, we've had enough immigration. We've had enough. And he's the son of immigrants as well, but he can acknowledge that, because there's a difference between the micro and the macro. And that's what people need to understand. And when you accept that, when you accept that who in your country is what matters, it will set your mind free on every other issue, and you'll actually be able to find solutions to problems. That's why you can't vote for Democrats. That's why, yes, a bad Republican is still better than a Democrat, and you should show up and vote. Democrats in a state like West Virginia never hesitated to vote for Joe Manchin because they knew he was the best that they could get there. And he was a key vote. You could have had a Republican in that seat. Therefore, the Senate would have been very different during Biden's tenure. Although it is true McConnell sucks. But guess what? McConnell's retiring. You're repealing and replacing the establishment. Now is the last time to take your foot off the gas as a movement, as a party. That's why the left wants to divide the party from within. That's why the left kills people like Charlie Kirk, because he's effective. So, who knows? But let's see. We have no new updates. I mean, like I said, this one's going to go to a runoff. But look at this. The counties that are all in, well, some of them went to Gonzalez, but a lot of them, Herrera plus 29. Like, this is insane. Let's check the previous runoff if we can. Do the comparison. Terrell County, Herrera 62-28. That was 67-33, so that's to be expected. Brewster County, that's not really a flip. 65-35, 56-36. But there's a lot of vote left. That one's not done counting. Like Crane County is Gonzales by 4. All the votes are in. Crane County, see, this one is, I guess, a flip. But maybe the runoff electorate's different. Maybe there were more early votes. I don't know. But it's going to be interesting to watch the runoff here. But Herrera's gaining as more of the election day votes come in. It's just a weird turnout dynamic that we see. But one thing that we do know is that the more votes get counted, the worse Gonzales does. This one is going to a runoff. There's one county, and that's Gonzales by 29. We could find that this county. But I believe, yeah, that one went to him by 24 in the runoff last time anyways. So he's weakened across the board. We got to carry that momentum into May, if that's when they've scheduled the runoff for. But I don't know if we could stay around and wait for everything to be called, because that would take possibly hours, if not days. But that is it for Super Chats for now. Someone asked why I'm against Fishback. He'd lose Florida to a Democrat, for one. That's the only reason you need. Second of all, the guy's a joke. Like, this is the guy who is too busy lighting his lawn on fire, allegedly. No, I mean, like, seriously, you look at where he comes on the scene. 2 years ago, he was pro H-1B. He gave emotional support to Vivek Ramaswamy during his infamous Christmas crash out. And he was like sycophantically pro-Israel, which is the ironic part. And then now his entire personality is grifting off of like morons on the internet whose single issue is Israel. Like, that's what he's doing. And a lot of it, like, he takes some actual valid populist ideas and he makes them into like unpalatable slop the way that he promotes himself, which is not good. And that doesn't mean Byron Donalds is perfect. I don't even know. Like, it seems like he probably is the most viable in the race. But I do have some grievances with him. But Fishback is just a total disaster. He's just grifting. That's what people don't understand. He doesn't have any conviction. He focuses on weird issues that most people don't care about, and he thinks he's going to win. He would lose the general. Like, it would be bad. He's trying to be the Republican Zoran, but Zoran is at least kind of where the Democrat base is in New York City. You don't, like, become the Republican Zoran by just running contrary to, like, issues that Republicans in many cases care about. This guy praised Kamala Harris not yesterday, but over the past weekend for her statement on Iran. Like, that's his view of like bipartisan shit. Yeah, it's not gonna work out very well. It's a disaster. And you know the media is gonna pounce. That's why they prop him up. They put him on CNN. They write op-eds about him that are not all that like bad, because they know he'd lose. Like, he'd lose with his abortion stance alone. But his fundraising is garbage. Like, he's just not going anywhere. People overstate him like vastly. And he has sexual abuse allegations as well. Whether they're real or they're not, I don't care. You understand the optics of, if it even gets out as a rumor that's false, 26 and 16, yeah, you're done. Like, it's over at that point. Your career statewide for anything is just over. But people genuinely believe that this guy's electable. He doesn't even poll well with young voters on the right, but people act like he's gonna walk to an easy victory. Like, no, that's not how it's gonna work. Same thing with, I think Putsch is even more of a joke in Ohio, and I'm not a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy. I wanted Dave Yost, but that guy just like whines about Trump. He accused me of being in the Epstein files. I was like, probably like, I don't even know how old when most of the files are from. Like, the guy's a lunatic. He's not a serious option. The guy's horrible optics, too. He named his Facebook fan group the Putsch Beer Hall, which is like something in Nazi Germany. He's like a big fan of like Candace Owens, who has lost her mind. Never really had it, to be honest. If we're gonna go through her history that nobody ever talks about, even her critics never bring up. They never bring up social autopsy, that whole ordeal. There's a lot of lore there with her. But it's like these characters in the mix, they're very online. They get a lot of traction and on the internet. And a lot of it is just third world bots. They don't go anywhere. And it doesn't mean that the other candidates are necessarily good. It's that these people are crazy people that don't know anything about politics that would get destroyed in an election in a Trump plus double-digit state. Like, it's just, it's just absurd. But we have no new votes. 5-point lead for Tallarico. He's gonna win, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if it gets closer or not, but it will be within 10. But that number, so long as that number needs to stay above a 50, or Crockett's still in this. And she narrowed it again. I don't know. Dallas didn't even drop more votes. I don't even know where that came from. So we could down check Kalshi for the Democrat. Yeah, there's a 3% chance that it ends up going to a runoff. So we will see. Someone said it will be under 50 when it's over the fixes, and I hope. That would be funny. I mean, if they want to rig it in favor of their weaker candidate, then go for it. Although, to be fair, I'm not afraid of the other guy. But there's a lot of votes left. You're talking about a non-insignificant number that has yet to come in. And how many votes is he even above a runoff right now? Because if I had to guess, 740, he's only like 30,000 votes above a runoff. I don't know, but it could be interesting. But we understand the Senate race on the Republican side is going to a runoff. So let's see, why so much hate for Donald's? Well, I don't understand the H1 Byron thing. That is like not really true. He had a couple weak immigration votes when he first got to Congress, but he has an A+ from Numbers USA since then. He's come out against H-1B visas recently, believe it or not. And he also happens to, I think the crime issue he's been a bit weaker on. He said some things that, in the past he was more liberal on social issues, and some of that may have permeated in. But I assume Trump would keep him in check when it comes down to stopping crime and sending the National Guard in. I'm not too concerned about it. There's not a lot he really can do as governor. But, the state legislature, they made DeSantis seem as effective as he was. It was that all the bills they were passing too. People forget about that. So those state legislative races also matter. But, as Donald, he has faults, but Fishback is just a walking disaster case. What do people say about, people say, what do you say about Fishback that's negative? I want to hear what people say that's positive at this point. Oh, but he doesn't take money for APEC. Yeah, I don't think they're going to give him money. They probably didn't want to give him any money. That's why he changed his position. That's the only reason why. He's just a total grifter. And speaking of like the Massies of the world, they don't take the money, and you see what they do. And it's not even a principled stance because his biggest donor is very pro-Israel, even though he doesn't donate to Massey for those reasons. It's not like a principled stance that Mr. Principles over there loves to claim that he takes. But yeah, it's still within 5. It's just a tug of war. I think Crockett might have gone up a hair in Harris County. It's tough to see which way this race is going to shake out down the stretch. Obviously, Tallarico is going to finish with more votes in round 1, but is there a chance for a runoff? It's not 0. But you would obviously rather be Tallarico, and he probably does win outright tonight, but they're not calling it with 62% of the vote in. And even though Election Day turnout was not very strong on the Democrat side, they did still anticipate that it would benefit Crockett, but the polls have been wrong. So I don't know if that's really the best benchmark that you want to use. But it's within 5, and Tallarico's only 1.8% above the runoff threshold. But there are these like rural counties that are left, nothing out of a lot of them, but then there's some on the eastern side of the state that probably benefit Crockett. There's Election Day vote in Dallas that probably benefits Crockett and Fort Worth. But it's still a 73,000. And it's not even that. You have to look at the benchmark. Take the total votes, divide it in half. He's only really up by 28,000 because the chances of a runoff are still on the table depending on how it shakes out down the stretch. But we're not going to stay up all night for it. So, all right, guys, I think that we're going to do a last call for Super Chats. Someone says Fishback's anti-elite. Well, I mean, every candidate on the Republican side is. Jay Collins is. I'm sure Renner is. Like, that's a default position at this stage in the game. I'm just telling you, you'd be wasting your vote anyways because he would lose to a Democrat in Florida. I don't care how red Florida's gotten. You're talking about Roy Moore's scandals. You're talking about Doug Mastriano's abortion position. You're talking about like being very terminally online, not being able to raise money. It's just a weak candidate. It's not going to matter because he's going to get his ass kicked in the primary. But the delusion of like the online is there for some people that think he has a chance. It's like among young voters, he's polling at 9% in the latest poll. Okay, and they predicted okay, why are you doing this for Cornyn but not Paxton? It's the thing. They said Cornyn's going to go to a runoff, or are they saying he's safe but can get to 50? I don't think he's getting to 50. Because if you're going to a runoff, Paxton's also advancing. So I don't know why you call it for Cornyn to advance, but not Paxton. Hunt can't catch Paxton. And there they go. Paxton joins them. Okay. We have set up the runoff. That should be interesting. All right. Well, I don't even remember the last time an incumbent senator was forced into a runoff. Not counting Murkowski in Alaska. But let's see. Crockett's up to 47. I don't know where the recent votes have come in from. Maybe it's just Eastern Texas filling out. But there's still a lot in Western Texas as well. Austin, still 40% of Austin's outstanding. 39% of Dallas is, to be fair, as well. We don't know which way the election day, like they used to have it, and now they don't have it. And it was always lagging when they had it, so it wasn't perfect. Let's go down to the House races. Crenshaw lost. Gonzalez is going to probably go to a runoff. And that is that. All right, we'll stay on until the end of the hour. We'll stay on for another 7 minutes, and then we'll wrap it up. How is Green doing? I think that it depends. Let's see. Okay, he's losing, but he's only down by 4, and Menifee is at 48, and he fell from being at 49. So that one is going to go down the wire and probably goes to a runoff. Harris County is, look at this. This is interesting. Talk about a close race. That is approximately 82 votes that are separating Cornyn and Paxton. That is too close for comfort, one could say, if it actually meant anything statewide, which it won't. And I think Paxton probably takes the lead in that county when the election day votes report. James All Day TV says Mark Texera won the GOP primary for District 21. That's true. March 26th is the runoff? Really? May 26th. That's what I thought. May 26th. So you have 2.5 months. How's Herrera doing? It's probably going to a runoff, but he's doing well with the election day vote, which is a good sign. Let's go to, 45 to 40. It's like a 4-point race when you take rounding into account. But if you're just getting here, Dane Crenshaw lost. Other than that, not a lot of surprises. But it was something that I saw coming. And technically they haven't called it yet, but he's up. Toth is up by 19. I don't think Toth loses. Trump stayed clear of endorsing, smart move. Yeah, it's smart from his perspective. The problem is that I don't think he's thinking long-term regarding John Cornyn. Now, if Cornyn wins the primary and the runoff, the hope would have to be that he is going to shape up, but the guy's so old that he's going to be there for one term and turn into another McConnell, who abandons all of his principles just despite Trump all the time these days. I don't know. Now, the Paxton affair scandal definitely is the reason why he's not winning right now. I will say that. Far more so than the so-called corruption stuff. People probably think that Paxton has more baggage in his closet. I saw people saying I saw one guy say he voted for Cornyn because Paxton has too much baggage that they're going to release, but it's what have they not released already? And he's still standing. Now, I understand you could make the argument that he's weaker because of that, but it's Texas. The electorate that shows up probably is Trump plus 8 or so, and that's being a little generous to the Democrats. I don't think you're going to see enough of a gap, even looking at the Jay Jones gap that we saw in Virginia. And it's a national race too. Senate races usually are more polarized. So long as we get enough people turning out, we should win it, especially because Tallarico's not a moderate. Kevin Colazzo for $20. Thank you, Kevin. Says, how's Crockett doing? Well, so far she's losing, but it's technically not over. It just depends on how the election day votes go. But I probably would assume that Tallarico holds on, but there's a slim chance for a runoff. State Senate leader Evan Berger losing his primary. I'm not surprised. These like state legislative leaders always face tough primaries. So it's not the most surprising thing in the world. So Tallarico only up by 5.7. He's not up by 5. He's up by 4.9. So, yep, I think that, Decision Desk could be behind as well. We're going to wrap it up, though, in a couple minutes. So, it's been a good stream. We've seen the decline of one rhino, with another one having to wait for May, which he'll probably lose. We have a Senate primary that, judging based on how it turned out, even though a runoff was anticipated, it might not be the best news. It just depends on what happens between now and May. Trump might have a big decision to make, one that could lose him more support if he decides to, or at least people claiming that it's lost their support, even though they yell about everything he does. And I'm not saying it would be the move that would be the best move, but there's a chance he endorses the rhino. We'll see. Other than that, not a great or bad night, just an intriguing kickoff to the midterms, and we'll have to end it just about there. But it is true, Gonzalez went down. He's now only up by 3, and the votes will still fill in, but runoff will happen. We'll cover this all in a video tomorrow, probably with the updated totals, because they're going to probably take a few hours to finish counting these ballots. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Like the stream down below, subscribe, hit the bell. I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.